Chapter 1255. Zhongling stopped crying and resolutely said, "You saved our lives back then. We were able to become perfected golden immortals because of your cultivation. We were able to live peacefully for thousands of years because of your protection. Since your disappearance, the divine residence has been destroyed, and more than half of the millions of attendants have been slaughtered. All those who were loyal to you have either been killed or sent to the Black Whale Star region to work as absentee laborers. They have been tortured day and night. The 9 of us suffered heavy injuries and hid in the world of the Lotus, struggling at death's door. It was not until the dust settled and the immortal abode was reduced to ruins that we used the immortal sealing restriction to enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. We attacked the 6 paths of reincarnation and reversed the mirror of time to search for the trace of connection with you and reincarnated into this world. Fortunately, Grandma came to our rescue and hid us in the formation, allowing us to escape the pursuit of the 6 paths of reincarnation." Tan Xiu gently patted Zhongling's shoulder and asked, "Who is this grandma you mentioned?" Zhongling said, "She is," swoosh, a lightning-fast figure streaked across the sky and appeared in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. After seeing the scene in front of her, the old lady's complexion greatly changed, especially when her eyes fell on Tang Xiu. She couldn't help but shiver a few times. Tribulation stage. Her voice was filled with disbelief. "Grandma." Zhongling and the others bowed slightly. Even though their true age was more than 10 times that of the old lady, they still revealed grateful expressions and spoke in unison. Tan Xiu's eyes also fell on the old lady in sackcloth. He slightly nodded and said, "I'm Tan Xiu. Greetings, fellow Taoist. I once had a feeling that there was a monstrous expert in our Huaxia kingdom. I am truly fortunate to be able to meet him today. Thank you for saving my 9 subordinates." The old woman took a deep breath and stabilized her surging emotions. She nodded and said, "Being able to meet them is our fate. Saving them was also a coincidence, so you don't need to thank me, Taoist friend. It's just that I didn't expect you to be so different from how you were 3 years ago. I didn't expect to see so many martial cultivators here." Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, "Fellow Taoist, as the saying goes, a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at in a new light. Now that 3 years had passed, who wouldn't have made some progress? As for people like us, we will not belong here in the future. Fellow Taoist, if I'm not mistaken, you should have grasped the way to go to the immortal world, right? I wonder if you can take me with you." "To tell you the truth, we are indeed going to the immortal world," said Tan Xiu. "However, I can't take you with me to the immortal realm because there's a high chance that we'll die. According to Senior's cultivation, it shouldn't take long for you to ascend to the immortal realm." A look of disappointment flashed in the old lady's eyes, but she still nodded and said, "If that's the case, then I won't force you." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist protected my 9 subordinates, so I, Tan Xiu, owe you a favor. If fellow Taoist has any other needs, you can tell me now." The old lady thought for a while and said, "Then help me get rid of those 2 annoying fellows. If I'm not wrong, they should be here soon." "All right." Tan Xiu readily agreed. A minute later, 2 old men came from 2 different directions. Before they arrived, their wild laughter could be heard. "There's a heaven and earth anomaly. Someone is crossing the tribulation. Let's join in the fun on the day of the immortal tribulation and go to the immortal world with them. Ha ha ha. That old thing from Huaxia. I didn't expect her to be 1 step faster than us. If she's willing to take us to the immortal world, it'll be great if we can absorb some of her immortal qi. If she doesn't want to, then we'll destroy her crossing period and let her be killed by the immortal tribulation." As soon as his voice faded away, the 2 old men had already appeared in the sky above the island. The smiles on their faces suddenly froze when they saw the scene in front of them. They could feel the overwhelming killing intent directly locking their bodies, as if they would suffer tens of thousands of terrifying attacks if they made any move. Experts. All of them were experts. There were more than 200,000 of them. The 2 old men exchanged glances and nearly cried. Despite their monstrous strength, they were still shocked by the scene and felt their hearts palpitating with fear and trepidation. Tan Xiu turned to look at Gu Yan, and smilingly said, Ji Qimei did a lot of things when she left early. Since we're leaving, you should also kill these two little guys along the way. Little guys? The address made the two old men stare with wide eyes. Suddenly, Zhongling stepped forward a few steps and saluted. Let us do it, master. We've just regained our memories, so let's move our muscles and do something for you, master. Tan Xiu and Gu Yan exchanged glances. He then nodded and smilingly said, since you want to move your muscles and bones, then do it. Yan, give them swords. Gu Yan, faintly smiled and threw out 9 immortal swords. She then said, 9 big sisters, Yan has been taken care of by you since she was a child. I'm very happy to meet you again now. These 9 immortal swords are defective. Yan, will definitely give each of you a top-grade immortal sword when we arrive in the immortal world. But for now, you can use these defective swords. Thank you, little Yan, The 9 women faintly smiled. After receiving the immortal swords, they quickly forced out their blood essence and refined the 9 immortal swords. Then, they instantly unleashed the immortal swords to form a sword array. They used to be maids. But they had also experienced fighting and killing. This sword array was taught to them by Tang Xiu when he had nothing to do in his spare time. After thousands of years of practice, coupled with the cooperation of the 9 of them, they could still easily kill profound immortals even if their strength had plummeted. We don't have any malicious intent. The 2 old men's expressions changed drastically. One of them hurriedly waved his hand and shouted. The 9 women seemed to have not heard it and formed a terrifying killing move that instantly enveloped the 2 old men. In almost an instant, the 2 of them died and their souls scattered. Please leave, fellow Taoist. Tan Xiu looked at the old woman and said. The old woman sighed inwardly when she saw that the 2 enemies she had fought with for hundreds of years had all been killed. Her eyes swept over Zhongling and the other 9 women before she finally nodded slightly and flew toward Huaxia. She didn't expect it. The 9 children she took care of turned out to be immortals with their memories sealed. Moreover, they were also Tan Xiu's maids. She didn't expect that their strength had reached such a level. She could, let go. The old woman wore a gratified expression and disappeared from the sky above the South China Sea in just a few breaths. In the sky, the tribulation clouds churned, and the lightning seemed to break free from the shackles of the dark clouds at any time and struck down on everyone below. As Gu Yan, unlocked the restriction in her body, her aura continued to rise. Her divine will instantly enveloped the entire earth. She easily found the remaining zodiac jade carvings and took them all in an instant. At the same time, in tens of thousands of places on Earth, some villains who had done despicable things were also instantly wiped out by her divine will. It was also at this moment that the entire human race was at its most peaceful. Master. Gu Yan handed the zodiac jade carvings to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu smiled slightly. With a long roar, he took out all the other zodiac jade carvings that he had kept in the space ring. A total of 12 zodiac jade carvings instantly flew in all directions. A dazzling red light burst out from each zodiac jade carving, and a powerful aura descended from the sky. Who destroyed my heavenly law cage? An angry roar came from the distant sky. In the blink of an eye, a palm that was tens of thousands of kilometers in size slammed down from the sky. Gu Yan's eyes turned cold. She fiercely slashed out an immortal sword and slashed it directly at the big palm. A hole that was thousands of kilometers long appeared on the palm of the big golden palm. Immediately, blood poured down and was instantly sucked into the tens of thousands of jade bottles that Tan Xiu took out. A golden immortal. Damn it. The mysterious powerhouse in the sky hurriedly withdrew his hand. As he cursed in exasperation, he finally disappeared without a trace. At this moment, in the sky, a hole that was tens of kilometers wide and thousands of kilometers long gushed out endless immortal chi. Tan Xiao and Gu Yan looked at each other. Then, Gu Yan waved her arm and a shuttle-shaped immortal artifact appeared out of thin air. More than 200,000 powerhouses of the Great Tang Empire were all sucked into the shuttle-shaped immortal artifact. "Let's go, Master," Gu Yan said softly. Tan Xiao smiled faintly and gestured for her to go in first. Then, he looked to the north. With his eyesight, he could clearly see dozens of powerhouses from China's Special Abilities Bureau. All of them were holding binoculars and observing this place. At the same time, he also saw Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjun holding binoculars with complicated expressions. "Brother Miao, Brother Xiao, take care. If you have any problems, go find that Daoist in linen clothes. She is the true guardian of China. You will still be able to see her in 100 years. Senior Duanmu, I hope I can see you in the immortal world. At that time, the flag of my Great Tang Empire will be planted all over the immortal world." After saying that, Tan Xiao looked at the moved people. Then, he looked up at the shuttle-shaped immortal artifact and laughed. "What are you waiting for, Fire Qilin? Do you want to return to the immortal world with your own strength?" Roar, a thunderous roar came from afar. In just a few breaths of time, the flaming Fire Qilin appeared in front of Tan Xiao. "Put away the flames. Let's go." After saying that, Tan Xiao's figure quickly entered the shuttle-shaped immortal artifact. The monstrous flames on the Fire Qilin's body also dissipated in an instant and quickly entered the shuttle-shaped immortal artifact. Buzz, a huge aura was transmitted from the shuttle-shaped immortal artifact. In almost the blink of an eye, it quickly rushed into the crack in the sky. A few minutes later, the crack in the sky slowly closed. The dark clouds dispersed, the lightning disappeared, and the deafening roar of thunder disappeared. The entire world returned to its original state. Chapter 1256. Immortal World, Extraterritorial Milky Way. Lightning suddenly flashed and thunder rumbled in the dark world. Planets trembled slightly as airwaves formed tornadoes that passed through the planets and crushed tens of thousands of meteorites. A shuttle-shaped immortal artifact suddenly appeared out of thin air amidst the sudden burst of light. The 1,000-meter-long shuttle-shaped immortal artifact quietly floated near a planet and gradually dissipated along with the heaven and earth phenomenon. The hatch opened and two figures quickly appeared in the outside world. "This is..." Gu Yan slightly furrowed her brows with a puzzled look in her eyes. She had been fighting in the immortal world for thousands of years and had been to countless places, but she was sure that she had never been here before. Tan Xiao's expression was calm, but there was a complicated look in his eyes. He sensed the rich immortal qi in the surroundings and slowly said, "This is extraterritorial Milky Way." Extraterritorial Milky Way? How did we come to extraterritorial Milky Way? Gu Yan was surprised. "You must know that the immortal world is boundless and extraterritorial Milky Way is very far from where we used to live. Even I have never been to such a faraway place. If we can't find a teleportation immortal array, it'll probably take us thousands of years to reach the immortal Lyceum's territory by relying on the Skysoar shuttle." Tan Xiao looked around and said, "We really can't reach the immortal Lyceum's territory for the time being. Even if we do, we'll encounter many dangers along the way. We'll all die on the way if we're careless. What should we do, Master?" Gu Yan forced a smile. "We can only take an unconventional path now," said Tan Xiao. "We'll find a place to stop and settle everyone, but we'll need to leave for a while." "Where are we going?" asked Gu Yan, curiously. "I've been to extraterritorial Milky Way before and I know where there's a teleportation immortal array," said Tan Xiao. "But we'll need to pay a lot of immortal stones if we want to use it given our strength. That's why we're going to snatch the immortal stones from the nearby immortals. Of course, it'll be even better if we can get immortal crystals." "Robbery?" Gu Yan smiled bitterly. With the identity of her master, Tan Xiao, he was actually reduced to the point of robbing others. If those who knew her master's identity heard this, they would probably find it hard to believe. A few days later, The flying Apsara shuttle landed on a planet. This planet was very desolate, and not a single living thing could be seen on the entire planet. More than 200,000 people flew out from the Skysoar shuttles and set up camp there. Buzz, 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 whether it was the higher-ups of the Great Tang Empire, the soldiers of the 4 major legions, or the family members who came with them, all of them had a breakthrough in their cultivation after absorbing the immortal qi. After living on this planet for half a month, almost everyone had a breakthrough. Some people with excellent cultivation talent even had consecutive breakthroughs. It could be said that the overall strength of the Great Tang Empire had increased by at least a level in just half a month. During this half a month, Gu Yenner, who had the strength of a golden immortal, had arranged 4 layers of arrays on this planet. Each layer of arrays was closely connected, and no one could break this array and harm the people of the Great Tang Empire unless they were an immortal who had reached the golden immortal stage. Let's go. After arranging everything, Tan Xiao and Gu Yenner flew into the distance. The immortal world was vast and boundless, and the extraterritorial galaxy was also very vast. Even a perfected golden immortal would need 100 years to fly from one end of the extraterritorial galaxy to the other. In such a vast territory, there were countless forces, countless immortals, and tens of billions of mortals. 2 days later, the two of them met the first immortal in the immortal world. This immortal was wearing a white robe and had the appearance of a weak scholar. He was flying in a sorry state. His cultivation was only at the celestial immortal stage, but there were more than a dozen immortals in the 2 chariots behind him. Most of them were at the celestial immortal stage, and only the white-haired, white-bearded old man's surging aura proved that he was a low-stage profound immortal. Stop. Tan Xiao and Gu Yenner stood in front of the white-robed immortal. Yu Zhong was an immortal who lived in the coiling spiral immortal domain of the extraterritorial galaxy. His family was very powerful, but he was the illegitimate son of a deacon elder of that family. Because his father had gone to another immortal domain to handle some matters, his father's official wife made things difficult for him and sent people to get rid of him. However, just when he was in despair, he found that there was actually a powerhouse blocking his way. It made him feel like adding fuel to the fire, and his heart fell to the bottom at this moment. "Senior, please spare my life." Sensing Gu Yenner's powerful aura, Yu Zhong immediately knelt in the void and begged for mercy. Tan Xiao glanced at Yu Zhong indifferently, and then his eyes fell on the 2 chariots that were getting closer and closer. As the chariots arrived, more than a dozen people on them floated down. The immortal world is really as cruel as it used to be. A bright smile appeared on Tan Xiao's handsome face. The old man in the lead narrowed his eyes and sized up Tan Xiao. Then, his eyes fell on Gu Yenner and said indifferently, "Thank you for helping us stop those damned people, 2 friends." "I'm not interested in the matters between you two," said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. "If you know what's good for you, hand over all your immortal stones and immortal crystals. I only want money, not blood." "Are you trying to rob us?" shouted the old man angrily. "Didn't you see the symbol on us?" asked Tan Xiao with a smile. "What's wrong? Don't tell me you guys have some great background." The old man sneered. "This immortal domain is under the control of my Yu clan. Anyone who dares to provoke my Yu clan has already perished. Judging from your extraordinary bearing, you two shouldn't be from this immortal domain, so I advise you not to poke your nose into other people's business. Don't harbor any evil intentions, else you'll lose your life." Tan Xiao secretly shook his head. Although he had yet to break through to the immortal stage and was far from being a match for these people, he had Gu Yenner by his side, a golden immortal helper. The Yu clan? He had never heard of it before, so it must be a small clan in this immortal domain. Tan Xiao looked at Yu Zhong and curiously asked, "They're from the Yu clan. What about you? Who are you, exactly? How did you provoke them?" Yu Zhong was afraid of Gu Yenner's strength, so he honestly told her about his life experience. Finally, he said with a bit of hatred, "It's not up to me to decide which family I'll be reincarnated in. I've been very low-key for the past 1,000 years and didn't even want to use the resources given by my father because I didn't want to take advantage of the Yu clan. However, the Yu clan still didn't want to let me go after my father left. Two seniors, please save my life. I'm willing to give you all the wealth I have. Also, I'm willing to tell you a secret that will definitely be of great benefit to people like you who seek wealth. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and he immediately smiled. I think we can make this deal, Yenner. Whoosh! Gu Yenner's figure was as fast as lightning and appeared in front of the Yu clan's immortals in a flash. She instantly unleashed her immortal sword and a swift and fierce sword move toward the sky and swept over the immortals. How is this possible? The eyes of the leading old man fiercely shrunk and disbelief burst out from his eyes. He was a profound immortal expert and was quite famous in this immortal domain. In the entire Yu clan, only the patriarch and the 6 deacons were stronger than him. However, the other party could kill him in one move and also kill all the men he brought. Such strength was at least at the golden immortal stage. Gu Yenner sneered. She seemed to have returned to the days when she was bathed in blood and killing. There was no trace of pity in her eyes. She quickly took out the interspatial rings of the Yu clan's members and opened them to find a lot of things inside. They're too poor, master. Gu Yenner shook her head and finally transferred all the things into her interspatial ring. Then, she said, there are only 102,000 immortal stones and 4 immortal crystals. The other things are also trash. I'm afraid they can only be exchanged for a few 100,000 immortal stones at most. At the side, a strange expression appeared on Yu Zhong's face. There were so many immortal stones and immortal crystals, yet this woman said that the Yu clan was poor. Was she joking? However, Tan Xiu's next words almost made him collapse. They're indeed poor with so few immortal stones and immortal crystals. Tan Xiu chuckled. I was just thinking about robbing this Yu clan, but I think it's better to forget about it now. They probably don't have much wealth. You're right, master. Gu Yenner smiled. But even a small mosquito has meat for us now. How about I go there myself? I'm sure I can loot the Yu clan. Tan Xiu looked at Yu Zhong and asked, is the Yu clan far from here? Yu Zhong's lips squirmed a few times and he forced a smile. It's not too far. It's only half a month's journey from here to the planet where the Yu clan is located. Given this senior's cultivation level, I'm afraid he can reach there in a few days. Tan Xiu and Gu Yenner glanced at each other and immediately said with a smile, since it's not too far, let's go to the Yu clan. That's right, you hate the Yu clan a lot, don't you? I hate them very much. Yu Zhong nodded heavily. I hate them so much that everyone in the Yu clan except for my father must die. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. This guy is not a good person at all. Ah, that's right. You just said that you'll tell me a secret if we help you kill these Yu clan members. Now, I want to know what secret you're going to tell me. Little fellow, if I have no interest in the secret you tell me, nor can I gain much from it, then you will have to pay a terrible price. I'll tell you in advance that I'm proficient in a secret art that can extract the immortal soul of an immortal and then torture it for an indefinite period of time. I'm afraid even fiends will be afraid of my method of torturing the immortal soul. Tan Xiu took out a cigarette, lit it up and said with a smile while smoking. Chapter 1257. Looking at Tang Xiu's smiling expression, her heart fiercely twitched a few times. Even though he wasn't able to sense a strong aura from the young man before him, but even that expert that was at least at the mysterious immortal realm had to respectfully address him as master. Presumably, this young man was concealing his strength, and he was probably formidable to an unimaginable extent. Moreover, this was not a good person. Yu Zhong was regretting his decision to lie to them. As long as he could get away, he could go there to try his luck when he was strong enough. But now, it seemed that he would end up badly if he lied to them. Senior, the secret I told you before is actually a blessed grotto heaven I found. It's a place full of dangers. Weaker immortals will definitely die there. I once teamed up with others to take an adventure there in order to obtain cultivation resources. In the end, all my companions died there and I was the only one lucky enough to escape. I was able to cultivate to the celestial immortal realm with my own ability because I obtained the auric perfusion gold in that blessed grotto heaven, Yu Zhong said respectfully. Auric perfusion gold. Tang Xiao and Gu Yan exchanged dismayed glances and looked surprised at the same time. The auric perfusion gold was a spiritual object of heaven and earth. It had great benefits for cultivators, especially its ability to nourish the immortal soul and greatly increase the power of the immortal soul. If an ordinary cultivator absorbed the essence of the auric perfusion gold, he could smoothly cultivate to the immortal realm as long as he didn't die prematurely. When an immortal absorbed the essence of the auric perfusion gold, his immortal soul would also benefit greatly. Tan Xiao was eager to improve his cultivation because his understanding of the heavenly Tao had already reached the peak of the immortal realm. As long as he could quickly improve the power of his immortal soul and obtain a large amount of cultivation resources, his cultivation path would be smooth sailing and he would return to the supremacy realm. Tell me, where is it? Tan Xiao stared at Yu Zhong. If he dared to lie, Tan Xiao would definitely make him die a horrible death. Yu Zhong took out an astrolabe and quickly marked an area. Then, he said, that heavenly abode is here. According to our judgment, this should be a trial ground. The place we went deep into was only the outermost area of this heavenly abode. However, just the outermost region had 7 levels. We only managed to enter the 7th level before my comrade was killed by some immortal puppets. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and looked at Gu Yan. Let's go to the Yu family first. I need a lot of immortal stones and crystals to improve my cultivation. When my cultivation reaches the immortal realm, we can explore this place again. All right. Gu Yanner nodded in agreement. Tan Xiao asked again, did you find an astrolabe on the bodies of the Yu clan? Yes. Gu Yanner took out an astrolabe and said, this is the most comprehensive astrolabe that marks the extraterritorial Milky Way immortal domain, but there is still a small part of it that is not marked. Including the place he just marked, there's no such place in the astrolabe we snatched. Tan Xiao took Yu Zhong's astrolabe and compared it to add some new places. An astrolabe was a map for immortals. Almost all immortals knew how to add a celestial domain mark on the astrolabe to increase its coverage area. Take us to the Yu family. Tan Xiao grabbed Yu Zhong's shoulder and then flew quickly with Gu Yanner. Flying in the starry sky was a common thing for immortals. After all, the immortal world was too vast. Only on a supercontinent could they travel through the universe without crossing the void. Planet Everblue. It was a planet thousands of times bigger than Earth, but 65% of its surface was covered by water. There were countless rivers and lakes, and the vast ocean stretched as far as the eye could see. This planet had a total of 3 large continents, while the rest were islands of different sizes. The Yu clan was an extremely powerful clan in this immortal domain and occupied a large continent. Planet Everblue has a total population of more than 100 million, among which there are hundreds of thousands of immortals. However, there are only 3 golden immortals on this planet, the most powerful of which is the Lan clan's ancestor. Rumor has it that she has broken through to late-stage golden immortal and is likely to break through to perfected golden immortal within 1,000 years. The Yu clan's ancestor is also a golden immortal, but he's only an initial stage golden immortal, far from being a match for the Lan clan's ancestor. However, the Yu clan has 6 abstruse immortals, 3 more than the Lan clan. Along the way, Yu Zhong explained the situation of this immortal domain, and finally introduced Planet Everblue. Tan Xiao noticed that when Yu Zhong talked about the Yu clan's ancestor, his eyes were exceptionally cold, devoid of any emotion. Perhaps in his heart, the Yu clan's ancestor wasn't as important as a passerby. Yu Zhong, we're all upright immortals. Although we'll rob some immortals when we're poor, they're all bad people. Since the Yu clan is bad in your heart, we won't be polite. However, your life is in my hands, so I'll use your name to rob the Yu clan. Do you dare? Asked Tang Xiao with a smile after he landed on the continent where the Yu family of Blue Star was located. Yu Zhong hesitated for a moment and forced a smile. Do I dare to disagree, senior? A wise man submits to circumstances. Tan Xiao smiled. You hate the Yu clan, so you can be the one to clamor. Let's head straight to the Yu clan's territory. That's right, do you know where the Yu clan's treasure vault is? I've never used the Yu clan's resources, so how would I know where their treasure vault is? Yu Zhong shook his head. But if you can catch a high-level member of the Yu clan, you can easily interrogate him. That's right. Tan Xiu patted his forehead and deliberately said, I'm really smart, but I'm muddle-headed this time. Let's go. We'll go straight to their clan's territory and stir up trouble. Then we'll ravage them. At the Yu clan. The land occupied by the Yu clan was comparable to the entire Huaxia country on Earth. Pavilions rose and fell continuously. No one flew above the Yu clan's territory because a powerful array was set up over the entire place. Unless someone could break the array, they would be attacked by the array once they flew into the air. Boom, the 100-meter-high gate of the Yu clan was smashed by Yu Zhong's fierce punch. The tens of Yu clan members stationed outside the gate were all ordinary immortals, so they couldn't withstand Yu Zhong's punch and were directly killed. In a flash, figures flickered lightning fast from the inside. They wore combat robes and held immortal artifacts in their hands. Each of them exuded a murderous aura and quickly appeared in front of the trio. The leader was a burly man in a black combat robe with a black cloak draped over his shoulders and an immortal spear in his hand. The moment he saw Yu Zhong, he angrily shouted, You're a member of the Yu clan, yet you dare to slaughter your own clansmen and smash the gate of your clan? You deserve to die. Yu Zhong, you damned bastard. Who gave you the guts to do this? Yu Zhong unleashed his immortal sword and said with a murderous aura, Yu Long, you know I'm a member of the Yu clan, so why didn't you, the ones in power, do anything about that demoness sending people to hunt me down? If I hadn't met my two benefactors, I would have been killed by Yu Qi. A sympathetic look flashed in the eyes of the burly man called Yu Long, but he still coldly said, That's your clan's business. It has nothing to do with us. But you brought people to destroy the gate and slaughter the clan's guards. That's a capital crime. Surrender and you can live a bit longer. Else, you'll have your souls scattered and you'll never be able to reincarnate. You're not qualified to make me surrender. Yu Zhong sneered. Seniors, both of you are people who have done great favors for me. I've decided to give the Yu clan to you. If they dare to disrespect you again, then kill them. Tan Xiu faintly smiled and looked at the burly man called Yu Long, feeling a bit helpless inside. He said that he was going to rob with Gu Yan, but in fact, he couldn't do anything at all. With his current strength, he could only defeat ordinary immortals at most. Any Earth immortal could easily kill him. Cherish your time, Yan, Do it now. The smile on Gu Yan-er's face slowly receded. The moment she unleashed the immortal sword inside her body, layers of sword images spread out for tens of kilometers. In nearly the blink of an eye, the outermost buildings of the Yu clan were all destroyed by the sword images. Tens of thousands of Yu clan members were seriously injured and lost the ability to resist. She didn't kill anyone. She knew Tan Xiu's character and that he wouldn't let her kill people casually, so she showed mercy and only crippled those people. Bastard! Yu Long retreated for tens of kilometers and looked at Gu Yan-er's terrifying figure. He immediately turned his head and shouted, Deacons, some people have come to our Yu clan to cause trouble. Sirs, please make your move and slaughter these damned enemies. Whoosh! 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 3 figures flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared in front of Yu Long. The burly man in the middle unleashed a sword strike and shouted, Who the hell are you? How dare you provoke the immortal might of my Yu clan? Are you tired of living? Gu Yan-er snorted coldly and instantly unleashed 80% of her power. As she unleashed her immortal arts and divine abilities, a large number of Yu clan members were sent flying and all of them were knocked unconscious. The 3 profound immortals who were directly attacked by Gu Yan-er looked horrified at the same time. A golden immortal? A golden immortal dares to attack my Yu clan? Quickly inform the old ancestor and ask her to eliminate these enemies. Yu Long could only watch helplessly as the 3 profound immortal deacons were sent flying. Two of them didn't seem to be able to survive, so he immediately screamed in horror. Gu Yan wore a disdainful look on her face. She unleashed a flurry of sword images and knocked out all the Yu family members below the Earth Immortal stage, while all the Earth Immortals and above were killed by her. Thousands of interspatial rings were thrown towards Tang Xiu's direction. Chapter 1258. Tan Xiu hovered in the air and looked at the interspatial rings that kept flying toward him. A bright smile appeared on his handsome face. As he used the secret technique, space ring after space ring was wiped clean of other people's traces, before he swiftly stored them into his own space ring. Yu Zhong, who stood next to Tan Xiu, had a complicated expression on his face. The members of the Yu clan, whom he had once hated, were now lying on the ground like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Those who had bullied him countless times in the past were also killed. His heart felt like it had been overturned. The sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty feelings surged in his heart. After a long while, 2 lines of tears rolled down his cheeks and the blue veins on his forehead bulged. He looked up at the sky and screamed, "Mother, do you see this? These damn Yu clan members have received their retribution. Rest in peace, your soul in heaven." All of a sudden, a huge aura came from the depths of the Yu clan's land and an old voice shook the world. "Who dares to make trouble in my Yu clan? Do you really think there's no one left in the Yu clan?" Gu Yan withdrew her immortal sword and looked at the newcomer. A contemptuous look flashed in her eyes and she coldly said, "The Yu clan does have a lot of people, but they're nothing but ants. Little guy, it's not easy to cultivate to the golden immortal stage. Open your clan's treasure vault and hand over all your wealth if you don't want to die." Robbery? Yu Haoran arrived in front of Gu Yan, as if he couldn't believe his ears. He could sense Gu Yan's power, but never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that a golden immortal expert would rob his Yu clan without a care for her face. What kind of treasure did his Yu clan have that made her so shameless? "Who are you, mister? I'm afraid your real intention is not as simple as robbery, right?" asked Yu Haoran in a deep voice. "I'm a dignified golden immortal, so why would I want your clan's wealth? How could it be robbery?" Gu Yan replied indifferently. "I came here with Master mainly to seek revenge for an ordinary person. However, it's a waste to leave the resources in your clan. Master and I are doing a good deed, so I'll help you keep it." "Master?" Yu Haoran was shocked in his heart. To be able to become the master of a golden immortal expert, I'm afraid he's at least a perfected golden immortal, right? If it was a perfected golden celestial, then it wasn't someone he could contend against. Even the woman in front of him might not be his match. When Yu Haoran understood this, he glanced at Tan Xiu and Yu Zhong. To his surprise, he found that Tan Xiu had not even reached the immortal realm. He was just a cultivator at the crossing tribulation stage. However, when he thought about what Gu Yanner had said just now, he immediately felt that this fellow in front of him was absolutely a golden immortal of the great all-embracing heaven who was pretending to be weak. "Senior, if you need wealth, my Yu clan is willing to hand over all our wealth. However, I don't know which member of my Yu family had a grudge against your friend. If we can mediate, I'm willing to hand over the culprit and let you deal with him." Gu Yanner slightly furrowed her brows and muttered, "I thought I could go on a killing spree, but it seems impossible now. Master is the most soft-hearted one. I really don't understand why a dignified supreme in the immortal world would pity these ants." With that said, Gu Yanner flew toward Tan Xiu. Yu Haoran was shaken inwardly and a chill instantly spread all over his body. He clearly heard Gu Yanner's mutterings just now, especially those 4 words, which were like a clap of thunder roaring in his heart. Supreme in the immortal world. Could it be that this mysterious man is a supreme in the immortal world? There are probably less than 100 people in the entire immortal world who can reach the supremacy stage, right? Who is he? Which terrifying existence is he? Yu Zhong flew out from behind. He could clearly sense Yu Haoran's fear, so he felt that he should use his connections to bully others. Hence, he came to a place about a kilometer away from the Yu family's ancestor and indifferently said, "Yu Zun's wife, Lan Shi, and her 13 relatives are all damned. Yu Haoran slightly furrowed his brows. He knew that Yu Zun was one of the 6 deacons of the family and a profound immortal stage expert. However, when he thought about the terrifying cultivation of the 2 people in front of him, Yu Haoran coldly gave an order: capture Yu Zun's wife, Lan Shi, and the 13 branches that are close to her. Investigate and execute everyone who has enmity with this friend. The order was issued. Heads immediately rolled down from the Yu family. Nearly 1,000 people led by Yu Zun's wife were killed on the spot. With a bitter expression, Yu Haoran respectfully said, "We've already killed all the people who should be killed. I've also sent someone to open the Yu family's treasury. Please." "I'm afraid the treasury of such a small family is full of trash," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "Yener, just go and come back quickly. We still have to visit the other 2 families." The other 2 families? Yu Haoran was shaken inwardly. If it was said that he was a bit unwilling before, then he was now gloating. Although his family suffered a great loss this time, he was smart enough to avoid a bigger loss. But the old fogies of the other 2 families were stubborn. If they were to fall out with these people, it was likely that their families would be filled with rivers of blood and corpses, wouldn't it? In just a few minutes, Gu Yenna returned to Tan Xiu and gently nodded. The 3 of them no longer paid attention to Yu Haoran and flew straight to the distance. Yu Haoran stood in the air and looked at the direction where the 3 of them disappeared. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Notify the family's disciples to not walk around in the near future. If anyone dares to provoke them, I'll personally take his life without them having to kill him." Whoosh! A burly man appeared next to Yu Haoran. His eyes were full of anger as he said, "Sixth uncle, why did you compromise? You should be able to make them stay given your strength, right?" Yu Haoran turned his head and a cold light flashed in his eyes as he indifferently said, "Stay? Do you really think I can make them stay? She's at least a late-stage golden immortal expert and a master," she mentioned. "Do you really think I can do it?" "That woman is a late-stage golden immortal expert?" asked the burly man in horror. "Otherwise, do you think I would compromise?" Yu Haoran sneered. "Do you think the lives of my Yu family's descendants are so worthless?" If it's only that woman, I can activate our Yu family's protective array to deal with her. But what about her unfathomable master? What do you think his cultivation level is? Is he a perfected golden immortal?" asked the burly man hesitantly. "He's a supreme." Yu Haoran shook his head. "He's a supreme who can destroy our entire family in the immortal world with just one strike. Fortunately, he didn't bother to fight us, else we would all be dead now, including me." Gasp! The burly man couldn't help but gasp after hearing it. Blue Star. Another piece of land belonged to the Lan family. As the 3 of them arrived, Gu Yan knocked Yu Zhong out and casually threw him into a corner. Then, she and Gu Yan sneaked into the Lan family's territory. Their arrival didn't alarm anyone in the Lan family. Tan Xiu personally broke the array formations in the Lan family's territory, while Gu Yan was responsible for looting the Lan family's treasure vault. In 2 days, the 2 of them had looted 80% of the Lan family's wealth. Then, the 2 of them took the still unconscious Yu Zhong and appeared in another family. They used the same method to loot the other family's wealth and then directly left the Blue Star and flew toward the vast starry sky. Damn you family! You family, you are hateful. A few days after they left, the Lan family and another family roared furiously at the same time. A large number of experts from the 2 families even attacked the Yu family's territory in a short time. The reason was very simple. The Yu family had stolen nearly all of their family's wealth. All of it. For Tan Xiu and Gu Yan, it didn't matter anymore. The 2 of them took Yu Zhong and found a desolate planet, where they lived in seclusion. For 3 months, Tan Xiu was in seclusion. He didn't absorb the energy contained in the immortal crystals. Instead, he desperately absorbed the immortal qi in the immortal stones. Finally, when the 3 months were up, he faced his immortal tribulation. What he cultivated was the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, which belonged to the top cultivation technique of the demon realm. Even if it was given to a demon god to cultivate, it would still bring him great benefits. But Tan Xiu didn't have demonic qi in his body. Instead, he had chaotic force, which was several levels higher than demonic qi. Therefore, his immortal tribulation was very terrifying. Even the earth immortal tribulation wasn't as powerful as the one Tan Xiu faced. Standing thousands of miles away, Gu Yan's eyes flickered with worry. Yu Zhong, who was next to her, had a strange expression on his face. He stared at the area where Tan Xiu was, not knowing how to express the strange feeling in his heart. The master of a golden immortal had just passed the tribulation. This was the first time he had heard of such a ridiculous thing since the beginning of the world. Therefore, Yu Zhong thought of the words Gu Yan muttered in the Yu family, and suddenly felt that it was funny. She even said that the supreme immortal realm was just a bluff. It was really hard for the patriarch of the Yu family to believe it and help him get rid of his enemy. He even offered most of his family's wealth. Tan Xiu stood in the immortal tribulation, letting bolts of lightning as thick as an arm strike his body. 81 bolts of lightning couldn't even break his body's defense. Sparks and electric snakes wrapped around him, as if giving him a bath. Tornadoes mixed with surging immortal qi enveloped Tan Xiu. But every time Tan Xiu waved his fist, he could destroy the terrifying tornadoes. At the same time, the thousands of planets around him were all trembling slightly. The most original life force of each planet was being frantically extracted by Tan Xiu and injected into his body. While strengthening himself, it was also used to fight against the heavenly tribulation. The planets in his body began to expand. After the 81 bolts of lightning had struck him, there were tens of thousands of planets in his body, which were about the size of Earth. Chapter 1259. The heavenly path universe tree suspended in his Dantian space was already hundreds of meters tall, lush with leaves. Rich life force was continuously being fed back to Tan Xiu, causing his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds and his strength to soar countless times. Power. Tan Xiu deeply felt the taste of power. The feeling of expansion and the feeling of having everything under his control made him slightly shudder. Because he had experienced this stage before, Tan Xiu was well aware that he was not an ordinary immortal after going through the immortal tribulation. His strength was comparable to an earth immortal stage expert even though his body had been integrated with the immortal force. Most importantly, with the surge in his strength, he could now cast many immortal arts and divine powers that he couldn't before. With his current strength, he could easily kill an ordinary expert in the heaven celestial stage. It feels good. As the immortal tribulation subsided, Tan Xiu slowly stretched himself. A confident smile crept up on his face and he couldn't help but mutter inwardly. Suddenly, his smile froze. After a moment of daze, he suddenly realized something. In the past, he always had hallucinations when he transcended tribulations, but not this time. Could it be that the inner demon in my heart has been removed and I'll no longer have any inner demon haunting me? Tan Xiu frowned. After thinking about it, he felt that it was reasonable and slowly let it go. In the distance, Yu Zhong was tongue-tied as he watched the terrifying immortal tribulation recede. He looked at Tan Xiu, who was stretching and smiling. It was as if he had seen the most incredible thing in his life and his mouth was wide open. Gu Yan also looked happy. She turned to glance at Yu Zhong and couldn't help but smile. You feel relaxed, don't you? Too relaxed. Yu Zhong's lips squirmed and he murmured, when I transcended the immortal tribulation, the power was far inferior to this one, but I barely managed to resist it. Why do I feel like he's just joking with his tribulation? It was such a powerful attack, yet it only scratched his itch without causing him any pain. Could it be that the heavenly Tao's rules are all bark and no bite, purposely going easy on him? Pfft, Gu Yanner couldn't help but laugh out loud. Looking at the shocked expression, she said with a smile, who is he? He is my master. This kind of immortal tribulation is simply child's play to my master. Let me tell you, even though my master has just passed his immortal tribulation, with his current strength, I'm afraid he can still fight a heaven immortal like you. Yu Zhong slowly turned his head and looked at Gu Yen's flower-like smiling face. Although her beauty made his heart flutter, he still shook his head and said, he has just advanced to become an ordinary immortal. Even if the heavenly tribulation he experienced was very powerful and he's very strong, he can only be compared to an earth immortal at best. Fight with me? I don't find your words funny at all. Gu Yena revealed a playful expression and said, don't worry. There will be a time for you to see it. Yener. Tan Xiu flickered and appeared in front of Gu Yener. He looked at Yu Zhong, whose expression was a bit strange. He ignored him and smilingly said, we've successfully crossed the immortal tribulation, so it's time for us to deal with the proper business. The wealth of those 3 clans is too little, and I've consumed a lot of it recently, so we need to rob more resources. Are we still going to aimlessly look for a target, Master? Gu Yener nodded. Or are we going to continue robbing the big clans in this immortal domain? We've already robbed the 3 biggest clans in this immortal domain. Tan Xiu shook his head. I'm afraid there won't be much profit if we go to other clans. Also, if I remember correctly, there's a colorful light area nearby where many powerful immortals go to explore. Let's also go there and we should be able to get a good harvest soon. Robbing powerhouses is naturally better than robbing poor clans. Gu Yener nodded. What should we do with him, Master? Kill him? Or let him go? He's not our enemy. Tan Xiu shook his head. His strength won't be a threat to us, so there's no need to kill him. How about this, we'll let him follow us first, and we'll let him go after we've snatched enough cultivation resources. Yu Zhong wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and hurriedly said, yes, yes, yes. I may be very weak, but I'm a celestial immortal after all. I'm sure I can help you a lot. Also, I don't have any malice toward you, and I'm very grateful to you. I would have died in the hands of the Yu clan if it weren't for you, let alone taking revenge. It's good that you know what you're doing, Tan Xiu said. We don't like to kill innocent people. Just listen to us and take us to the place where the auric perfusion source is in the future. Of course, we won't let you work with us for free. We'll give you 1/10,000th of all the cultivation resources we've robbed as a reward. 1/10,000th? Yu Zhong's eyes lit up and an ecstatic look immediately appeared on his face. 1/10,000th sounded like a small amount, but it was an absolutely amazing fortune for him personally. It must be noted that this man and woman in front of him had just robbed the 3 major clans and obtained an astronomical number of resources. Those resources were already huge in his eyes. Thank you. Thank you, Senior. I'll do my best until the day I die. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with Yu Zhong's attitude. He immediately left and said a few more words to him, you're not bad. At least you haven't used the Yu clan's resources all these years. You may not have much strength, but you have a good backbone. As an immortal cultivator, you must have the courage to fight against the heavens, demons, and ghosts. The immortal world is a cruel world. If you don't fight, you'll be eliminated and die in the hands of more powerful enemies one day. Cultivate well and you may become a powerhouse who can shake the world in the future. Yu Zhong agreed with Tan Xiu's words, but inwardly, he felt disdainful of the praise. It was simply a joke for a weakling who had just ascended to immortal to give him pointers. 7 days later. The 3 of them had arrived at the multicolored starfield. There was a huge land floating in the air here. It was so vast that one couldn't see the end of it. Some almighty experts from the immortal world had once measured the area of the Sunray starfield. It was so vast that even a perfected golden immortal would need several years to fly from one end to the other. This starfield was filled with multicolored lights. The scene was breathtakingly beautiful and breathtakingly beautiful. However, the red clouds fluttering in the air greatly hindered their vision. Is this the multicolored starfield? I've only heard about it countless times before, but I've never been here. Yu Zhong curiously observed the scene in front of him, but he was secretly on guard because he had heard about the dangers here. This place looked beautiful, but it was filled with danger at every step. A slight carelessness would lead to death without a burial. I've been here before. Tan Xiu nodded and said, this is indeed the multicolored starfield. Let's go. I know there's a special creature here that will be very beneficial to us. Since we're already here, plundering cultivation resources is one thing, but we must also collect the good stuff. What kind of special creature are you talking about, Master? Asked Gu Yan, curiously. It's a fire cloud cicada, answered Tan Xiu with a faint smile. A fire cloud cicada. Gu Yan stared blankly for a moment and then smiled with satisfaction. It's indeed a good thing. If we can get it, we can combine it with other materials to refine the multicolored cloak. A strange expression appeared on Yu Zhong's face again. Although Tan Xiu had just broken through to the immortal stage, this person was getting more and more mysterious in his eyes. He knew about the fire cloud cicada and was very clear about it. This creature was very powerful, but its value was also very high. A fire cloud cicada could be auctioned for tens of millions of immortal stones. If he could get a fire cloud cicada, he wouldn't need to worry about cultivation resources for the next 100 years at least. Senior, this fire cloud cicada is very powerful. I don't have the slightest confidence in catching it. Besides, I heard that it lives in a very dangerous place. Shouldn't we reconsider? Yu Zhong hesitated for a moment, but he still spoke up for the sake of his own life. Tan Xiu glanced at him and lightly said, there's no need to reconsider. I've already made my decision. Shortly after, the trio entered the range of the Sunglow Starfield. After more than a day of hurrying, they finally stopped on a crimson mountain peak. It was not that they didn't want to continue their journey, but the battle ahead blocked their way. The monstrous sword Qi and the sharp saber light made them not dare to take it lightly even though they weren't weak. Interesting. Standing under a red tree, Tan Xiu quietly watched the battle tens of kilometers away. With his current eyesight, not to mention the scene tens of kilometers away, he could even clearly see the scene thousands of kilometers away. In the sky, more than a dozen immortals were fighting. To be precise, it should be more than a dozen celestial immortals in white robes were besieging a black-robed man under the leadership of a profound immortal. The black-robed man was very strong and was at least a golden immortal stage expert. However, his body was riddled with scars and his injuries were extremely serious. Even a profound immortal and more than a dozen celestial immortals still made him struggle to hold on. What made Tan Xiu and Gu Yan vigilant was not the two sides fighting, but the three old men standing near them. Two of them were obviously from the same group as the white-robed immortal, whereas the other old man covered in blood was from the black-robed man's group. Their auras were very powerful. As a golden immortal, Gu Yan could judge their auras and knew that they were at least golden immortals. Even if they were hiding their strength, it was very likely that they were perfected golden immortals. Even if they were not, the weakest among them was at least a late-stage golden immortal. Heavens! I know that immortal who's being besieged. He's Dark North Immortal, the sect master of the Aurelian Artificer sect in another starfield. He's a dignified golden immortal, yet we're in such a miserable state. Disbelief flashed in Yu Zhong's eyes as he exclaimed in a low voice. Chapter 1260. A glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He pressed his hand on Yu Zhong's shoulder and asked in a low voice, are you sure you're not mistaken? Is he really the Aurelian Artificer sect's sect master? Yu Zhong nodded and said, I met him decades ago. He's indeed the Aurelian Artificer sect's sect master. He's very strong and likes to make friends with powerhouses from all walks of life. He definitely has the most friends in the nearby starfields. Of course, the most important thing is that his Aurelian Artificer sect is good at refining artifacts. Many high-quality immortal artifacts are refined by them. Do you know this Aurelian Artificer sect, Master? Asked Gu Yan, curiously. Tan Xiu nodded slowly and said, I once had some connections with them. I went to this Aurelian Artificer sect more than 2,000 years ago. I wanted to ask them to help me forge an immortal artifact at that time, but I didn't expect that their level of artificing was much worse than mine. So, I picked a batch of crafting materials from the Aurelian Artificer sect and gave them a crafting book as compensation. Was the Aurelian Artificer sect master the one who besieged you? Asked Gu Yan, curiously. No, he wasn't. Tan Xiu shook his head. Gu Yan hesitated for a moment and asked, what should we do then, master? Do we still take action? Tan Xiu faintly smiled and sent a voice transmission to Gu Yan, Of course. My appearance has changed greatly. Even some of my old acquaintances may not be able to recognize me now. Besides, I'm afraid they won't believe me even if I tell them that I'm that supremacy stage powerhouse given my current strength. However, if this artificer sect is useful, they can help us with something. Gu Yan's expression shifted and she immediately understood Tan Xiu's meaning. There were more than 200,000 cultivators in the Great Tang Empire now, and all of them were using ordinary artifacts. Now that they were in the immortal world, if they could equip each of them with an immortal sword, it would definitely increase the Great Tang Empire's combat power to another level. Master he wanted the Aurelian Artificer sect to refine immortal artifacts for the Great Tang Empire. Dozens of kilometers away. The profound immortal who besieged Dark North Immortal had a proud smile on his face. He fiercely slashed Dark North Immortal's arm and laughed out loud. You never thought that you would have such a day, did you, Dark North Immortal? Back then, you stole the woman I liked and severely injured me. It's time for us to settle the enmity from back then. Dark North Immortal tried his best to evade, but he had consumed too much immortal force in his body and his injuries were too serious. He was now like an arrow at the end of its flight. Overwhelmed with grief and indignation, he angrily roared, Qing Lu, Kaiyin is the woman I love deeply, and she also loves me deeply. We love each other, it's only right and proper for us to be together. As for you, you despicable and shameless person, you've been scheming against us all along. Back then, I cared about our past relationship, so I only heavily injured you and didn't take your dog life. I didn't expect you to jump out and make an enemy out of me when I was seriously injured. Do you really think that ants like you can kill me? Clearstream sneered and said, of course, with your current situation, we are more than enough to kill you. As for that ancestor of your artificer sect, do you think he dares to move? My Clearstream clan has 2 ancestors. I really regret that I didn't kill you and scatter your soul back then. Dark North Immortal roared. It's too late to regret now, sneered Clearstream. In the distance, Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and watched the situation over there. Then, he slowly said, if my guess is correct, those 3 golden immortals over there are all seriously injured. The reason why they haven't moved is that they are afraid of each other. They can encounter danger at any time in this multicolored starfield. If they continue to fight, they will easily fall here unless they are very lucky. Gu Yan nodded and said, that expert from the Aurelian Artificer sect seems to be about to move. He shouldn't just stand by and watch Dark North Immortal get killed. Yan, if you join hands with that expert from the Aurelian Artificer sect, can you easily get rid of those 2 golden immortals? Asked Tan Xiu. I'm enough to kill all 3 of them by myself, replied Gu Yan, confidently. Then let's do it. Tan Xiu nodded. 3 bolts of lightning flashed and appeared on the battlefield. Then, Tan Xiu shouted, fellow immortals of the Artificer sect, I've heard that your Aurelian Artificer sect's master, Dark North Immortal, is a forthright man who likes to make friends from all walks of life. Since fate has brought us to meet today, we also hate such despicable people. Why don't we join hands to kill them? After we kill them, we'll take all their resources. What do you think? Dark North Immortal looked ecstatic upon hearing that and loudly said, I'm Dark North Immortal, the Aurelian Artificer sect's master. Thank you for your help, friend. This Dark North Immortal will always remember this great kindness in my heart. As for the harvest after killing them, it's all yours. Also, this Dark North Immortal will also take out some treasures to thank you. Well said. Tan Xiu watched as Gu Yan dashed toward the 2 golden core stage experts of the Clearwater clan. Suddenly, he took out an immortal sword from his interspatial ring. Surging sword chi surged as he instantly rushed to Dark North Immortal's side. The three of us will join hands to kill the enemies. Tan Xiu shouted in a deep voice. Yu Zhong could only force a wry smile inwardly, but he could only brace himself to fight alongside Tan Xiu and Dark North Immortal. Dark North Immortal went all out to kill the two celestial immortals and quickly approached Tan Xiu. Take them all. Tan Xiu threw a jade bottle and then controlled his immortal sword to block the attacks of the Clearwater clan's celestial immortals. Yu Zhong directly lured the three celestial immortals over and fought them with all his might. Dark North Immortal had already taken all the healing pills he carried with him. After catching the jade bottle, he unplugged the cork and smelled the medicinal fragrance wafting out of it. Then, he swallowed it without hesitation. He knew very well that given the situation he was in, if the other party didn't help him, he would have no choice but to die. Therefore, the other party didn't need to use pills to harm him. He swallowed a holy healing pill. A moment later, he revealed a wry smile. The efficacy of this holy healing pill was too poor and didn't have much effect on him. Without any hesitation, he swallowed the remaining 19 healing pills in one gulp. Finally, the medicinal effects of so many healing panaceas added together were of some help to his injuries. Taking advantage of this time, he took out an essence amassing pill, swallowed it, and desperately refined it. Fuck off. The immortal sword controlled by Dark North Immortal was a bit more powerful than before. Seeing that the immortal sword controlled by Clearwater clan was about to hit Tan Xiu instantly blocked the immortal sword. At the same time, he fused the trace of medicinal efficacy he had just refined with the last trace of immortal force left in his body and then unleashed a crazy strike. The immortal sword swept across. Clearwater clan's immortal sword was cut in two, and Clearwater clan's immortal body was also cut in half. At this moment, Dark North Immortal spurted out a mouthful of blood. The power in his body was completely consumed, causing his body to fall down. Devil Slayer with the broken sword. A cold light flickered in Tan Xiu's eyes. He was afraid of Clearwater clan's abstruse immortal, but he wasn't afraid of these celestial immortals. As the immortal sword continued to attack, he also displayed the devouring divine ability. As the surrounding airflow became distorted, the 7 or 8 celestial immortals besieging him suddenly swayed a bit. Again. As the immortal sword swept toward two enemies, Tan Xiu unleashed another divine sword. In an instant, the divine sword burst out with a 10,000-meter-long sword light. The two celestial immortals who were focused on defending against the attack of the immortal sword were caught off guard, and the divine sword directly killed them. I'm still too weak. Tan Xiu secretly smiled bitterly in his heart. If his cultivation was one level higher, even if he reached the Earth Immortal stage, he was confident that he could easily kill these celestial immortals. Watch out! Suddenly, Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed. He found that a sword shadow had chopped off Dark North Immortal's left arm. He didn't have time to attack the others and instantly dashed to Dark North Immortal's side. He reached out to grab his severed arm and then hugged his waist, falling to the ground like a meteor. Kill them. Among the remaining celestial immortals, 3 of them were still besieging Yu Zhong, while the other 6 were chasing after Tan Xiu and Dark North Immortal. It seemed that they wouldn't stop until they killed the 2. Not far away. Gu Yan, and the Aurelian Artificer Sect's Patriarch were already fighting with the other 2 Clearwater clan's Golden Immortals. Even though the Aurelian Artificer Sect's Patriarch was seriously injured, he didn't show any mercy in the fight. However, what made him secretly startled was that the woman who came to help him was really powerful. Her single attack had killed the 2 enemies several times. Even though they managed to avoid being hit in their vital parts, they still suffered heavy injuries. Get out of my way! Shouted Gu Yan, in a cold voice. Her figure seemed to have turned into layers of sword shadows that instantly swept past the 2 Clearwater clan's patriarchs. One of the Clearwater clan's patriarchs was directly cut off at the waist and his immortal body was shredded into pieces by the scattering sword energy. On the ground. The moment Tan Xiu landed, he fiercely threw Dark North Immortal away and shouted in a deep voice, "Hide and recover your strength." After saying that, he directly gave up controlling the Immortal Sword and used his natal Divine Sword to fight the 6 Celestial Immortals. Tan Xiu cast various divine abilities and secret techniques very smoothly. Coupled with the assistance of his Devour divine ability, the 6 Celestial Immortals couldn't attack him in their best state. Therefore, they couldn't kill Tan Xiu for a while. Star Devourer Insect. Suddenly, Tan Xiu shouted. Suddenly, a stream of light flew out from his fingertips. In nearly a flash, the Star Devourer insect's body suddenly expanded 100 times. Exuding a terrifying aura, it released sticky silk threads that directly entangled the arms and legs of the 6 Celestial Immortals. As the 2 Celestial Immortals closest to it were pulled and directly devoured by the devouring force coming out of its mouth, the other 4 Celestial Immortals were killed by Tan Xiu's natal Divine Sword. The next moment, Tan Xiu's momentum didn't diminish at all. His body dashed to the sky and in just a few breaths, he came near the besieged Yuzhong. Chapter 1261. Tan Xiu controlled the Divine Sword and the Star Devourer insect to attack at the same time. Coupled with Yuzhong's resistance, the last 3 Celestial Immortals were also killed in just a dozen seconds. When the Star Devourer insect turned into a stream of light and re-entered Tan Xiu's body, Tan Xiu's gaze shifted to the battle on Gu Yen's side in the distance. His strength was too weak to help Gu Yen's at all. However, what reassured him was that one of the 2 Clearwater clan's golden immortals had been killed by Gu Yen's, while the other one was barely resisting and could be killed by Gu Yen's at any time. Tan Xiu didn't notice that although Yuzhong had many wounds on his body at this moment, he didn't seem to feel the slightest bit of pain. His eyes were dull as he stared at him in a daze. Yuzhong was shocked. Because he had been paying attention to the whole scene of the battle. Aside from the Profound Immortal and 2 Celestial Immortals who were killed by Dark North Immortal, the other 8 Celestial Immortals who besieged Tan Xiu were devoured by that strange insect-like creature, while the rest were all killed by him. Even with the help of that very strange insect-like creature, the result was still too dazzling. In addition, 2 of the 3 Celestial Immortals who besieged him died in Tan Xiu's hands. During the whole battle, Tan Xiu killed 8 Celestial Immortals in total. Such combat strength was simply terrifying. It must be noted that he had just crossed the immortal world and became an immortal, killing people who were 2 levels above him. Yuzhong had only heard of such a heaven-defying achievement in legends. It was the first time in 1,000 years that he saw it in real life. Yuzhong felt ashamed when he thought about how he had been dismissive of him when he had been teaching him. If he breaks through to the earthly immortal realm, won't he be able to kill celestial immortals like killing chickens? If he breaks through to the celestial immortal realm, I'm afraid even profound immortals will be mercilessly slaughtered by him, right? If he breaks through to the profound immortal stage, wouldn't the golden immortal stage be? Yuzhong's heart skipped a beat. The way he looked at Tan Xiu suddenly became unusually hot. Suddenly. With a thought, he quickly turned to look at the battlefield not far away and found that the last golden immortal of the Clearwater clan had been killed by Gu Yen'er and was flying in his direction. Master, are you alright? Gu Yen'er came to Tan Xiu's side and intimately held Tan Xiu's arm as she asked. Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Some puny heaven immortals can't pose too much of a threat to me. As for you, you should have recovered to the late-stage golden immortal realm, right? He actually managed to kill them in such a short time." Gu Yen'er smilingly said, "I may have lost all my immortal artifacts and the might of my spells and divine abilities are not as strong as before, but it's still a piece of cake for me to deal with some golden immortals with my current cultivation level. Even if we encounter a perfected golden immortal, I'm still confident that I can escape with you, Master." Even though Tan Xiu knew that Gu Yen'er was once regarded as a terrifying demoness in the immortal world, he had only seen Gu Yen'er fight a few times. But after this battle, Tan Xiu looked at Gu Yen'er in a new light. Back when he was still a golden immortal, he was probably only able to do what she did now, no? "Thank you, fellow immortals. Chang Lu can't thank you enough for saving me. From now on, the three of you are the benefactors of my Aurelian Artificer sect. The Aurelian Artificer sect's ancestor rushed over with scars all over his body. He was shocked by Gu Yenner's terrifying power, but he was also full of gratitude. He was perfectly aware that he and Dark North Immortal would have died in this battle had it not been for these three people's sudden rescue. A surprised look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He carefully observed this golden immortal old man who called himself Chang Lu and asked, "My family's elders have some relationship with your Aurelian Artificer sect, so it's only natural for them to help you this time. Are you a Chang generation disciple of your Aurelian Artificer sect?" Dark North Everblithe looked surprised and said, "I'm indeed a Chang generation disciple of your Aurelian Artificer sect. May I ask who your family's elder is, fellow immortal? You should know about the gold-forging heavenly book, yes?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "My family's elder once mentioned to me that he came to this immortal domain by chance thousands of years ago and left behind an immortal fate there." The gold-forging heavenly book. Dark North Everblithe's eyes instantly turned saucer with disbelief. He was still wary of Tan Xiu's group of three, but after hearing this name, the wariness in his heart instantly disappeared without a trace and was replaced by a pleasant surprise and gratitude. The reason why his Aurelian Artificer sect was able to become a famous sect in this immortal domain in just a few thousand years was mainly because of the gold-forging heavenly book that was used to refine immortal artifacts. This masterpiece, which was regarded as the most precious treasure of his sect, was obtained by a mysterious powerhouse who exchanged some refining materials with his Aurelian Artificer sect several thousand years ago. "Fellow immortal, are you that senior's junior?" Dark North Everblithe was full of excitement and his breathing became a bit rapid as he asked with a face full of expectation. "Only a handful of people in this immortal world know about the gold-forging heavenly book," Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "Nobody knows that my family's elder came here several thousand years ago. Do you think I'll lie to you?" "I wouldn't dare." Dark North Everblithe excitedly said, "I was just an Earth immortal several thousand years ago. My status was too low at that time, so I didn't have the chance to meet that aristocratic elder. But I never thought that I would actually meet that senior's descendant today. It's really a blessing of 3 lifetimes. May I ask how should I address you, fellow immortal?" "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor," replied Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Dark North Everblithe stared blankly for a moment and felt a bit strange. One must know that only those super powerhouses who had broken through to the supremacy stage in the entire immortal world dared to use the title, Heavenly Emperor. Of course, there were also some perfected golden immortals that used the honorific title of Great Emperor, but all of those perfected golden immortals were terrifying monstrous geniuses that weren't much inferior to an exalt. Yet, this little guy in front of him, who didn't even seem to have reached the Earth immortal stage, actually dared to call himself Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. Wasn't he afraid of being ridiculed? Dark North Everblithe chuckled inwardly and said, "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. What an awe-inspiring title. Sect Master and I came out this time to catch a fire cloud cicada, but we didn't expect that we would be discovered by the Clearwater clan. They harbored evil intentions and pretended to be friendly with us on the surface. They were even willing to accompany us, but they attacked us when we were defenseless. Fortunately, the 3 of you came to our rescue in time and saved our lives. We'll always remember this great kindness in our hearts. But where are the 3 of you going?" Tan Xiu turned around and gestured to Gu Yan. He watched her quickly search the interspatial ring carried by the Clearwater clan. Then, he turned back and said, "Our target is also the fire cloud cicada. We want to catch some of them and refine them into the prismatic cloud robe." Dark North Everblithe stared blankly for a moment. Then, he forced a smile and said, "If Sect Master and I weren't injured, we could have helped the 3 of you." "But we..." Tan Xiu interrupted him and asked, "What about the healing elixirs you brought?" "All of them have been used up," answered Dark North Everblithe. Tan Xiu thought for a while and asked again, "Do you have the 1,000 leaves grass, 10,000-year-old toadstool, blood hazelnut, and white phoenix dew?" Dark North Everblithe immediately nodded and said, "Except for the white phoenix dew, which is a precious spirit liquid, the other 3 are ordinary immortal medicines." I happen to have them here. Tan Xiu asked for 4 kinds of alchemy materials and signaled Dark North Everblithe to check Dark North Immortal's injury. Then, under the protection of Gu Yan, he took out the demon god spirit devourer cauldron and began to concoct the springtime elixir. This elixir was very easy to concoct and its effect was mediocre, but it had a very good healing effect for immortals below the golden core stage. Of course, it was countless times better than the holy healing elixir Tan Xiu had concocted in the past. Upon seeing that Tan Xiu was about to concoct the elixir immediately, Dark North Everblithe was a bit surprised, but he still quickly went to the place where Dark North Immortal was recuperating. After observing, he found that Dark North Immortal's life was not in danger. It was just that his injury was too serious and he had consumed too much immortal force. Only then did he feel relieved. In the blink of an eye. 3 days passed by. When Tan Xiu cast the pill assimilation art, the lid of the demon god spirit devourer cauldron floated up and dozens of glittering and translucent springtime elixirs floated out of the cauldron and were stored inside the jade bottle Tan Xiu took out. In these 3 days, Yu Zhong had been waiting nearby. He originally thought that Tan Xiu only knew a little about alchemy and wanted to take advantage of this time to concoct some healing elixirs. However, when the lid of the cauldron was opened and he saw dozens of glittering and translucent springtime elixirs floating out of the inside, he was so shocked that his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. It was the springtime elixir. It was a very precious healing elixir. Apart from those super forces, who else could afford such a healing elixir? Furthermore, what made Yu Zhong collapse the most was that it was fine to concoct the springtime elixir, but how could he refine dozens of them at once? It must be noted that he had just broken through to the immortal stage and was not even an earth immortal yet. Similarly, just like Yu Zhong, the Aurelian artificer's sex ancestor, Dark North Everblithe, was also shocked. He had seen many alchemy grandmasters concocting pills, but he had never seen a freak who could refine dozens of springtime elixirs with only a few herbs. Dark North Everblithe watched as Tan Xiu put away the cauldron and floated to the front. He hesitated and said, "Great Tang immortal friend, are you concocting the springtime elixir?" As far as I know, no one has ever used so few herbs to refine so many. Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him. He threw 10 springtime elixirs to him and lightly smiled. "You'll know whether it's the springtime elixir or not after you take it." Dark North Everblithe hesitated for a moment and immediately took one of the springtime elixirs. Feeling the rich medicinal efficacy, he couldn't help but be moved. He nodded and said, "It's indeed the springtime elixir, and it's a middle-grade one at that. Great Tang immortal friend's attainments in alchemy have gone beyond my knowledge. I really admire you." Chapter 1262. Tan Xiu had refined a total of 32 springtime immortal pills this time. He had given 10 to Dark North Everblithe, leaving 22 left. Looking at Yu Zhong's longing eyes, he threw 2 of them to Yu Zhong as though he was throwing garbage and then put away the remaining 20. In the immortal world, each springtime immortal pill was equivalent to half a life. If one suffered a serious injury, they could quickly recover after taking the springtime immortal pill. Dark North Everblithe and Dark North Immortal had taken the springtime immortal pill for less than 2 days, and their injuries were already healed. Since both sides were targeting the Firecloud cicadas, they traveled together and quickly rushed toward the starfield where the Firecloud cicadas appeared. Blazing Flame Starfield. The starfield's area was not very large, but it was full of high temperature. By the time Tan Xiu's group of 5 arrived here, they had already experienced more than a dozen fights. Every time, the 5 of them would be able to slaughter their enemies and snatch the cultivation resources they carried with them. It was precisely this kind of robbery-like killing that made Dark North Everblithe and Dark North Immortal smile bitterly and feel helpless. If only, had it not been for Tan Xiu's group of 3 who saved them, they would have left long ago. After all, robbery was a disgrace to them given their status. However, Tan Xiu didn't care about it at all. At first, he just wanted to rob them and didn't want to kill them. But apart from 5 groups of people who attacked them first, the other 6 or 7 groups of enemies were also very ruthless. Tan Shio was perfectly aware that the immortals who came to the Sunglow Starfield were all ruthless and merciless characters. After all, every immortal had mentally prepared themselves before coming here. For the sake of resources, they would risk their lives even if they had to die here. It's about time, Master. Gu Yan sorted out all the resources they had plundered and pulled Tan Shio's arm with a smile. It's far from enough. Tan Shio shook his head. How can we let go of this opportunity since we ran into the Aurelian Artificer sect master? Yan let's hunt the fire cloud cicadas first. When we get more, we can sell them. Gu Yan instantly understood Tan Shio's thoughts. She nodded and said, that's good too. After all, we're going to face many dangers along the way, so it's a good thing to get more cultivation resources. Master, we've been out for quite some time. The sooner we finish our business, the sooner we can go back. There are no experts keeping watch over there. I'm afraid that something might happen. Tan Shio said, I'm also worried, so I know what to do. The conversation between the two of them was conducted through voice transmission, so the three people nearby did not hear it. Dark North Immortal suddenly interjected, Great Tang Immortal Friend, we've robbed a lot of resources along the way, so we don't need to be reserved anymore. If we find someone hunting a fire cloud cicada here, we'll directly snatch it. This kind of spiritual object belongs to whoever snatches it. Tan Shio, contrary to his usual behavior, shook his head and said, you can't take it. Dark North Immortal stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression, why not? We've. Tan Shio raised his hand to interrupt him and said with a solemn expression, the immortals who can hunt fire cloud cicadas are very fearsome, at least at the golden immortal stage. As far as I know, even some perfected golden immortals occasionally come here to hunt fire cloud cicadas. Therefore, to avoid kicking an iron plate, let's give up on snatching it for the time being. Dark North Immortal suddenly understood and pondered for a moment. Then, he curiously asked, Great Tang Immortal Friend, I have a question in my mind. I wonder if I should ask it. Just say it, said Tan Shio. You've obtained a lot of cultivation resources since we dealt with the Clearwater clan. Isn't that enough? Did you run into some trouble or something? Why are you in such an urgent need for cultivation resources? Tan Shio forced a smile and said, you've seen through me. That's right. We're indeed facing a shortage of resources. Also, I have another idea. I was going to tell you about it after we hunt some fire cloud cicadas, but since we've already come to this point, I'll get straight to the point. Go ahead. Dark North Immortal's expression moved and he immediately nodded. My clan belongs to a super force in the entire immortal world, said Tan Shio. But the clan is too big, and there are countless outstanding juniors in it. I'm just one of them, and I was sent to a remote place to gain experience. Therefore, a large number of my subordinates are in dire straits and need a lot of cultivation resources. Therefore, I want to order a batch of immortal artifacts from your sect. The doubts in Dark North Immortal's heart finally dissipated. He now fully understood why Gu Yan, a powerhouse who was just a step away from reaching the perfected golden immortal stage, would disregard her status to rob others' wealth. How many do you need? What kind? Dark North Immortal also learned some of Tan Shio's identity, so he also wanted to befriend him. After all, befriending the scion of a top super clan in the immortal world would be very beneficial for their secluded Aurelian Artificer sect. Tan Shio thought for a while and said, I want 240,000 immortal swords. The quality doesn't need to be too high, just beginner-grade immortal swords will do. 240,000 sets of defensive combat robes. The stronger the defense, the better. I'll provide you with the design of the combat robes. Also, I want a batch of your Aurelian Artificer sect's divine weapons, such as concealed weapons. The more, the better, 240,000 sets. Dark North Immortal's mouth twitched and he could only force a bitter smile inwardly. Such a huge number gave him a deep sense of powerlessness. His sect was indeed a big sect in this immortal domain, but it would be very strenuous for him to refine so many immortal swords and combat robes in a short time. 10 years. I need at least 10 years. Dark North Immortal hesitated for a long time before he gritted his teeth and said. 1 year. I can only give you 1 year at most. Tan Xiu shook his head. You can rest assured that I'll definitely give you immortal stones and immortal crystals to buy the weapons. But I can only stay in your immortal domain for a year. After that, I'll lead my men to other immortal domains. That's impossible. Dark North Immortal shook his head. Our Aurelian Artificer sect may have tens of thousands of disciples, but it's impossible for us to refine so many immortal swords and armors in a year. I can pay you immortal stones and immortal crystals in advance, said Tan Xiu. You can use the wealth to recruit artificer masters who are proficient in refining. I think you should have a deep relationship with some other artificer masters since you're a refiner sect. I'll give you twice the market price. How about it? Dark North Immortal looked at Dark North Everblithe and the two of them exchanged voice transmissions for more than 10 minutes. Finally, Dark North Immortal said, we'll guarantee the delivery within a year according to the normal price. You've saved my life and the ancestors, so you're the benefactor of my sect. We'll guarantee to complete the task even if we have to suffer a loss. After saying that, he cast a spell and sent the news back to the Aurelian Artificer sect so that the sect could prepare in advance. A few days later, the 5 of them found traces of fire-cloud cicadas near the crater of an erupting volcano. Dark North Everblithe observed for a while and then said with a wry smile, I've been here several times and know some of the habits of fire-cloud cicadas. Now that this volcano is erupting, I'm afraid that all the fire-cloud cicadas within hundreds of thousands of miles will be attracted here. However, they'll enter the magma inside the volcano as soon as they come, so we must wait for the volcano to extinguish and the fire-cloud cicadas inside to come out. Tan Xiu looked at the erupting volcano and shook his head with a smile. No need to go through so much trouble. Just watch me. After saying that, he stopped Gu Yan from following him and flew to the sky above the erupting magma alone. He then took out a pitch-black bottle from his interspatial ring, unplugged the cork, and poured it into the magma below. Insect-devouring liquid. Tan Xiu's group of 5 found it in the interspatial ring of one of the immortals they robbed. This insect-devouring liquid was a huge temptation for the fire-cloud cicadas, but it also had great benefits. Once the fire-cloud cicadas smelled the insect-devouring liquid, they would drill out of the magma. Thousands of years ago, Tan Xiu was able to easily hunt the fire-cloud cicadas due to his formidable strength. But he later slaughtered dozens of devils and obtained the insect-devouring liquid from them. Unfortunately, he didn't have the chance to use it until the end. Sure enough. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu clearly saw the fire-cloud cicadas. The fist-sized fire-cloud cicadas had a crimson body and eyes that glittered with multicolored light. 2 minutes after the first fire-cloud cicada appeared, Tan Xiu saw a total of more than 30 fire-cloud cicadas. Star Devourer Insect, help me capture all these fire-cloud cicadas. If you can capture all of them, I'll give you a medicinal pill to increase your strength, Tan Xiu transmitted his voice to Star Devourer Insect. It's a deal. As Star Devourer Insect's voice came from his sea of consciousness, Tan Xiu immediately released it and watched its body appear a kilometer away before it began to swell. Whoosh! A terrifying devouring force firmly locked more than 30 fire-cloud cicadas. In just 10 seconds, more than 30 fire-cloud cicadas screamed as they were swallowed by Star Devourer Insect. As Tan Xiu threw 36 jade bottles, Star Devourer Insect directly swallowed them and put the 36 fire-cloud cicadas into the jade bottles. Here. Star Devourer Insect spat out all the jade bottles and then turned into a stream of light that disappeared into Tan Xiu's body. Satisfied, Tan Xiu put the 36 jade bottles into his interspatial ring and then flew to the dumbfounded and seemingly petrified Dark North Everblithe, Dark North Immortal, and Yu Zhong in the distance. Then, he lightly smiled and said, "Why are you looking at me like that? In fact, hunting fire-cloud cicadas is quite simple." Simple? The trio's mouths twitched and they turned their faces to the side at the same time. They really wanted to beat Tan Xiu up. What was simple for Tan Xiu was extremely difficult for them, and the difficulty was beyond their imagination. Anyways, how many fire cloud cicadas do I need to pay for the weapons I ordered before, Dark North Immortal? Tan Xiu smiled. You should know that fire cloud cicadas are very valuable. Chapter 1263. Although Dark North Immortal was shocked by how easily Tan Xiu hunted the fire cloud cicadas, he still couldn't help but pout inwardly after hearing his words. The value of the fire cloud cicadas was indeed very high, but the total value of that huge order was much higher than dozens of them. Tan Xiu took out 10 jade bottles and handed them to Dark North Immortal. Then, he smilingly said, I have other uses for the other fire cloud cicadas, so I'll take these 10 as part of the immortal crystals. Give me an estimate and see how many immortal crystals I need to pay you after deducting the total price of these 10 fire cloud cicadas. Dark North Immortal carefully pondered for a long while and then slowly said, 400,000 immortal crystals. Even if my sect doesn't earn a penny, I'm afraid we'll still need 400,000 more. Aside from the immortal sword and combat robe, if you want other weapons, the price. I can't take out 400,000 immortal crystals now, but I can give you 100,000 for now. Tan Xiu nodded and said, consider it as an advance payment for the 10 fire cloud cicadas. A year later, I'll pay you the rest when I come to pick up the immortal sword and combat robe. How about it? Dark North Immortal wiped his cold sweat and forced a smile. I'm not trying to be poor, Great Tang Immortal friend. My sect may have a big business, but we're not particularly rich. 400,000 immortal crystals is comparable to the entire wealth of a large sect. My sect can't take out so many immortal crystals in advance. Tan Xiu secretly rolled his eyes inwardly. He didn't expect that the sects and clans in this immortal domain would be so poor. He had robbed the 3 major clans and obtained less than 100,000 immortal crystals in total. Coupled with his recent gains, he barely had more than 100,000 immortal crystals. After pondering for a while, Tan Xiu took all the resources Gu Yan had and then gave them to Dark North Immortal. Then, he said, the total value should be 300,000 immortal crystals. Including the 10 fire cloud cicadas, I still owe you 100,000 immortal crystals. Am I right? Dark North Immortal took the interspatial ring and counted all the resources and wealth inside. Then, he nodded and said, there should be about 310,000 immortal crystals. Tan Xiu said, alright, I'll owe you 200,000 immortal crystals. You'll help me refine immortal weapons and combat robes as soon as possible. As for the other 100,000 immortal crystals, you'll help me refine a batch of the weapons you're good at. I'll take the 200,000 immortal crystals to your Aurelian Artificer sect within half a year and pay you. Dark North Immortal felt relieved inwardly and nodded with a smile. I believe you, Great Tang fellow immortal. Tang Xiu shook his head and forced a smile. I've been busy for a long time, yet I suddenly became a poor man again. Forget it, let's part ways here. I'll definitely visit you personally within 2 years. Dark North Everwood Chang North, Dark North Immortal cupped his fists. Just as he and Dark North Everblithe were about to leave, he suddenly turned to look at Tang Xiu and smilingly said, Great Tang Immortal friend, you can visit the Clearwater clan if you have time. 2 of the Clearwater clan's ancestors have been killed, leaving only 1 ancestor at the Golden Immortal stage. As far as I know, the Clearwater clan's wealth is much richer than our Aurelian Artificer sect. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and he smilingly asked, don't you want to take revenge? My Aurelian Artificer sect won't forgive the Clearwater clan if we don't accept your order, said Dark North Immortal. You're short on money now, so I'm naturally willing to give you this benefit. The Clearwater clan's wealth is enough to pay the remaining 200,000 immortal crystals. I understand. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. As Dark North Immortal and Dark North Everblithe left, Tan Xiu took out another interspatial ring from his interspatial ring and weighed it in his hand. Then, he forced a smile and said, I've been working so hard for a long time, yet I only have 1 million immortal stones and 5,000 immortal crystals left. I'm so poor. Suppressing her laughter, Gu Yan said, Master, where are we going next since we got the fire cloud cicada? Tan Xiao glanced at Yu Zhong and threw a jade bottle containing a fire cloud cicada to him. Then, he lightly smiled and said, let's go directly to the immortal domain where the auric perfusion source is located. If I can get the auric perfusion source, I should be able to contend with profound immortals within a few years. Gu Yan nodded with a smile and said, we must get the auric perfusion source even if we have to risk our lives. My strength will advance by leaps and bounds if I can get more of it. It won't be a problem for me to recover to my peak. Yu Zhong followed at the side with a strange look in his eyes. Tan Xiao and Gu Yan's conversation this time didn't avoid him, so he could instantly hear some sensitive issues from their conversation. For example, the recovery of her strength. But now, this woman was already a late-stage golden immortal, yet she was not at her peak. Then, what was she at her peak? Perfected golden immortal. Also, an ordinary immortal who had just broken through to the immortal stage actually said that he would be able to contend with profound immortals within a few years? Was this a joke? Yu Zhong raised his hand to touch the bridge of his nose. He suddenly recalled the scene of Tan Xiao slaughtering celestial immortals and immediately realized that he wasn't bragging and could really contend with profound immortals. Freak. Terrifying. After giving Tan Xiao and Gu Yan a definition in their hearts, they actually had the idea to follow Tan Xiao and Gu Yan. After all, they could go further and become stronger if they could follow powerhouses. Rubble Starry Sea. Under Yu Zhong's lead, Tan Xiao and Gu Yan took more than 2 months to reach the Rubble Starry Sea where the auric perfusion source was located. It was a very desolate place. At first, the trio could still meet some immortals, but in the last 4 days, they didn't even see one. Meteorites hovered in the vast void. Hundreds of millions of meteorites formed a meteorite belt. Due to the movement of these meteorites, those who were slightly weaker could be struck and killed by the meteorites. In the eyes of almost all immortals, this starfield was a garbage dump. Occasionally, there were some small stars or meteorites that contained some treasures, but the quantity was very small. Therefore, no immortals were willing to come here to hunt for treasures because it was undoubtedly like rummaging through a garbage dump. As they moved forward, Yu Zhong looked into the distance. When he saw a black planet ahead, he immediately pointed there and said, "There's a hurricane belt ahead. We need to pass through the hurricane belt and then land on that black planet. There's an ancient teleportation array on the black planet. I don't know exactly where the teleportation array will teleport us to. I can only be sure that the heavenly abode is at the other end of the teleportation array." Tan Xiao frowned and asked, "What about coming back?" "How?" "If we want to come back, we can directly step on the teleportation array at the other end and it will automatically send us back," said Yu Zhong. "I came back directly like that last time. Let's go." Tan Xiao thought about it and immediately made up his mind. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. He must take risks if he wanted to obtain a heaven-defying treasure like the auric perfusion source. Even Yu Zhong could escape from there alive and obtain the auric perfusion source. He believed that he and Gu Yan could also get it smoothly. The hurricane belt. It wasn't too dangerous for celestial immortals. Therefore, with Gu Yan, a golden immortal powerhouse, they were able to easily pass through and land on the huge black planet. What surprised Tan Xiao was that the soil of this planet was black and very fertile. But the strange thing was that there was no life on this planet. "It's over there." Yu Zhong judged it and then led the other two to fly quickly. 2 hours later, they arrived in front of a teleportation array. This teleportation array looked dilapidated, and one corner of it even had traces of being destroyed. However, Tan Xiao could tell that this teleportation array was not affected and could still operate normally. But before it could operate, he needed to put immortal stones in the groove. Put in the immortal crystals. To prevent any accidents, Tan Xiao immediately took out 8 immortal crystals and embedded them in the groove. Then, he and Gu Yan exchanged glances and the 3 of them immediately stepped into the teleportation array. Buzz, a mysterious aura instantly enveloped the 3 of them, followed by a feeling of dizziness. The three of them felt as if a century had passed, but it also felt like a snap of a finger. When the three of them regained their vision, they immediately discovered that they had appeared in an empty space. There was no blue sky and white clouds here, nor was there any soil. What he was stepping on was a material that looked like gold, but wasn't gold, and jade, but wasn't. The little bugs in the surroundings were like fireflies that had been magnified 100 times. They glowed brightly, illuminating the entire space. Ka ka, the mechanical voice came from all directions. Yu Zhong looked around, dumbfounded and confused. His lips squirmed for a while before he dryly said, "I swear we didn't appear here when we used the teleportation array last time. Strange, what is this place?" Tan Xiao and Gu Yenner looked at each other and frowned. Tan Xiao said in a deep voice, "None of the 7 layers of space you mentioned has such an environment." Yu Zhong replied solemnly, "No." Tan Xiao took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Since we're already here, we might as well take things as they come. Regardless of whether this is the place where the auric perfusion source exists or not, we still need to explore it. Let's go and take a look around. If there's nothing, we'll go back." Half a day later, the three of them stopped in front of a vortex portal. Yu Zhong looked at the vortex portal in front of him and finally looked pleasantly surprised. He said, "The space we appeared in before also has such a portal. We can reach the next layer after entering it." Tan Xiao released his spiritual sense, but it was like a stone sinking into the sea after entering the portal. He couldn't see the situation inside. After hesitating for a while, he and Gu Yenner exchanged glances and nodded to each other before flying toward the portal. "You guys," Yu Zhong was aware of the dangers of this space, but after seeing Tan Xiao and Gu Yenner enter the vortex portal, he hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and following them. Chapter 1264. In the blink of an eye. The scene in front of the trio changed. What appeared in front of them was a field of flowers and grassland. There were many living beings living in the endless grassland, but after the trio released their spiritual senses to observe, they found that these were not real living beings but mechanical puppets of various animal types. Whoosh, a figure flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared in front of the trio. Even though Gu Yenner was a golden immortal stage powerhouse, she was still startled by the speed of this person. However, when the others stopped 100 meters away, the trio found that it was also a mechanical puppet, just that it was a humanoid one. "Welcome to the immortal Civ realm." The mechanical puppet's eyes glowed with green light as it spoke with its metallic voice. "You said this is the immortal Civ realm?" Tan Xiao frowned. "What are you?" "I'm not a thing. I'm an alchemy puppet. This is indeed the immortal Civ realm, the 11th floor of the celestial pole world. You don't have any Illumina aura on you, so I'm sure that you were directly teleported to the 10th floor and then entered this 11th floor through the vortex portal." Tan Xiao's expression changed and he hurriedly asked, "What did you say?" "This is the celestial pole world." "Yes. The 11th floor of the celestial pole world," answered the mechanical puppet. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "The celestial pole oldster has been missing for 8,000 years. It should be 8,000 years. You said this is the celestial pole world of the celestial pole oldster. Is he dead?" The mechanical puppet fell into silence for a while before 2 glittering and translucent immortal crystal essences fell from its eye sockets. Its tone also turned somewhat human as it said, "Do you know my master?" "My master is dead. He died from a heart demon. It's strange that my alchemy tablet doesn't have any explanation about a heart demon. In short, my master is dead and left this world. Also, my master said to wait for the fated one." Tan Xiao clenched his fists, and a look of reminiscence appeared in his eyes. In the past, he had just gotten rid of his status as a playboy and successfully became a mysterious celestial stage expert. Then, he met the celestial pole old man in a dangerous and desperate situation. At that time, the celestial pole old man was just a golden celestial stage expert. Both of them didn't face any extreme danger, so they joined hands and escaped. From then on, He and the celestial pole old man became close friends. Tan Xiu even received many pointers from the celestial pole old man in terms of cultivation. I didn't expect you to fall here. Tan Xiu's heart was filled with bitterness. He looked at the mechanical puppet in front of him and nodded. Since celestial pole oldman left his immortal fate here, there should be a test, right? Tell me what the test is. I'll give it a try. The mechanical puppet said, You haven't answered my question. Do you know my master? Tan Xiu said, Yes, we are old friends who fought side by side. It's just that I didn't expect him to perish here 8,000 years ago. You're wrong, said the mechanical puppet. My master has fallen 8,821 years ago. Tan Xiu didn't care about such a trivial matter with the mechanical puppet and said, It's been too long. I don't know the specific time of his death. It's a bit troublesome if you want to participate in the trial, said the mechanical puppet. Let me think about it. The rule set by my master is that only celestial immortals can come here, so the lowest trial takers must be weak celestial immortals. You're just an ordinary immortal who hasn't experienced the earth immortal tribulation, celestial immortal tribulation, or golden immortal tribulation. I don't know how to arrange the trial for you. My main purpose for coming here is the auric perfusion source, said Tan Xiu. You just need to tell me what kind of test I need to pass to get the auric perfusion source. The auric perfusion source is on the 7th floor, but it's just a very poor cultivation resource, said the mechanical puppet. You're willing to use immortal crystals to activate the spatial teleportation array, which means that you have a lot of wealth. Do you really need that kind of poor cultivation resource? Tan Xiu understood what the mechanical puppet meant. If he was still a supreme in the immortal world, the auric perfusion source would indeed be very poor for him. But the problem was that he was only comparable to a celestial immortal at most, and he was extremely poor. He also had an empire with more than 200,000 cultivators to train. The auric perfusion source was already a very good treasure for him. I do need it. Tan Xiu nodded. You don't need to take any test from the 1st to the 9th floor. You can take anything you want, said the mechanical puppet. Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu immediately asked, How can I pass the final test? Since it's my old friend's pocket world, I want to take it with me. You're not qualified to participate in the trial, but the two beside you can, said the mechanical puppet. But the trial is very dangerous. 49,872 immortals have come here to take the trial, and a total of 37,216 people died in the trial. All the trial takers at the golden immortal stage have fallen. Tan Xiu's heart tightened. He was well aware of celestial pole Geezer's ability. If he hadn't fallen prematurely, he would have had a chance to break through to the supremacy stage. I want to try it, master. Gu Yan said with a calm expression. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He thought for a while and said, I know you want to participate in the trial, Yan, But I'm afraid this trial can't be completed in a short time. Besides, we still have important things to do, so we don't have much time to waste here. If you really want to participate in the trial, I'll accompany you again after we've settled down in the future. Gu Yan thought for a while and nodded. I'll listen to you, master. Tan Xiu looked at the mechanical puppet and asked with a smile, Why did we teleport directly to the 10th floor? This friend of mine has also been here before, but they were directly teleported to the 1st floor. That's because they used immortal stones to activate the teleportation array, not immortal crystals. Actually, this is a test of sacrifice. If you're willing, you'll be able to obtain the items from the first 9 floors. If you're unwilling, you'll have to go through the trials 1 floor at a time. Tan Xiu revealed a strange expression. Previously, he was only afraid that the transmission array would not allow them to return, so he used the spiritual crystal. He did not expect that by a freak combination of factors, he would actually pass the outermost test. He turned to look at Yu Zhong. Looking at Yu Zhong's lifeless face, he suddenly felt like crying and laughing. Now, this guy was probably regretting it so much that his intestines had turned green, right? If they had been willing to do the same, not only would they not have died, but they would have also obtained many treasures and escaped unscathed. Tan Xiu looked at the mechanical puppet again and said, "Send us to the 9th floor. In a while, we'll collect some things and leave." 2 beams of red light shot out of the mechanical puppet's eyes and a whirlpool portal appeared in front of the 3. The immortals have collected most of the items from the first 9 floors, but there's still some auric profusion left. I hope you'll be satisfied. Thanks a lot. Tan Xiu slightly smiled and immediately stepped into the whirlpool portal. The 9th floor. The 8th time. The 1st floor. Tan Xiu and Gu Yan simply searched every inch of the place. In just 2 days, they had collected all the items in the first 9 floors and put them into interspatial rings. If someone else came here again, they would not be able to get any treasures from the first 9 floors. Immediately after, the 3 of them stepped on the return teleportation array and reappeared on the ground. Tan Xiu said with satisfaction, "I thought we would have to go through some crises, but I didn't expect that a temporary idea would save us so much effort. Although the first 9 floors have been visited by many people, we still got a lot of treasures, much more than the wealth we plundered before. It's a pity that there's too little time, else I'd have asked the Aurelian Artificer sect to refine more weapons for us. Let's not talk about other things, just the auric profusion source alone has more than 100 portions," Gu Yan said with a smile. "I'm afraid we can sell it for 100,000 immortal crystals if we were to casually sell it." Tan Xiu nodded and sighed. Although robbery is the fastest way to get money, the wealth we can rob is also limited. After all, there are still many poor people in the immortal world. If we take the risk, we might be able to get a very huge amount of wealth. Yu Zhong, who was at the side, also obtained a portion of the auric profusion source and several other treasures that were very useful to him. But thinking back to the time when he used the immortal stone to inlay it into the groove to activate the teleportation array, he felt depressed. If he could get a lot of treasures last time, he might have the hope to break through to the profound immortal stage now. Or rather, he would have become a profound immortal powerhouse. How could Tan Xiu not see Yu Zhong's depression? He patted his shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't be depressed. If you used immortal crystals last time, you might not have come out alive." Yu Zhong was stunned and asked in confusion, "What do you mean?" Tan Xiu said lightly, "Think about it. If you used immortal crystals last time, even if you didn't accept the trial later and directly searched for treasures in the first 9 floors, wouldn't your companions be jealous? Wouldn't your companions be jealous of such a huge amount of wealth? Some people are very selfish and want to take it all for themselves. How big of a chance do you think you would have to escape alive?" A glint flashed in Yu Zhong's eyes and most of his depressed mood immediately disappeared. He knew that Tan Xiu was right. His companions couldn't fully trust each other at the beginning. If any of them were to harbor evil thoughts at the sight of wealth, he might really fall inside. "Thank you." Yu Zhong cupped his fists and said. "You don't need to thank me. Just remember my advice." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Don't ever regret anything you've chosen in the future. Regret is useless and will only affect your state of mind instead. If you're right, then you're right. If you're wrong, then you're wrong. Only by having no complaints or regrets can you open your heart and welcome a better future." Yu Zhong smiled and nodded. Then, he suddenly said, "Great Tang immortal friend, it's really a waste of your talent that you didn't establish your own sect and become an immortal master of your sect." Pfft, Gu Yan, at the side couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 1265. Greedy Wolf Immortal Domain. After Tan Xiu and Gu Yan arrived, they directly appeared on the periphery of a large city. They looked at the sky full of sword lights as countless immortals and cultivators came in and out of the city gate. The 2 glanced at each other and quickly landed on the ground outside the city gate. On the way here, Tan Xiu told Yu Zhong to leave. After all, he was from the immortal world, and Tan Xiu couldn't trust him at all. The 2 of them followed the flow of people and slowly walked on the wide street. Looking at the scene of the ancient city in front of them, a touch of nostalgia appeared on their faces. Compared to Earth, the 2 of them were actually more suitable here. After all, they had spent too much time here. Celestial Vine Pavilion. Tan Xiu pointed to a 100-meter-high tower-like building and smilingly said, "The Celestial Vine Pavilion is one of the largest businesses in the entire immortal world. We can directly sell the auric perfusion source at a low price. I believe we can sell it for 200,000 immortal crystals each." Gu Yan nodded and said, "We do need a lot of immortal stones and immortal crystals now." "How many are you going to sell, Master?" Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, "I'll sell 4 of them. Then we'll have 20 left and bring them back for our own use. After all, this kind of treasure is what the people of the Great Tang Empire need the most." Gu Yan thought for a while and said, "How many immortal stones and immortal crystals does it cost to use the spatial teleportation array you used before?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Given my previous identity, how could anyone dare to charge me for using the spatial teleportation array? To be honest, I really don't know the specific price. However, we have too many people, so I think we need a lot of immortal stones or immortal crystals. In that case, let's sell 4 of them." Gu Yan said. "I hope this Celestial Vine Pavilion is still as trustworthy as before, else we'll tear down their branch here." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "I'm looking forward to what they'll do. After all, their branch in such a remote immortal domain only has golden immortals at most. It's even possible that they only have profound immortals guarding this city." After a while, Tan Xiu and Gu Yan had already appeared in the Celestial Vine Pavilion's shop. A beautiful clerk in a white gown came to greet them. Tan Xiu directly said, "Tell your chief steward to come out and see me. Tell him that I have a big deal to make." The shop assistant stared blankly for a moment and carefully observed Tan Xiu and Gu Yan. He felt that both of them had an extraordinary bearing and immediately respectfully said, "Please come with me. I'll take you to the VIP lounge on the 6th floor. I'll also inform the head steward to meet the 2 of you in the VIP lounge. Lead the way." Tan Xiu and Gu Yan followed the shop assistant to the 6th floor. After entering a spacious VIP lounge, the 2 of them then sat down on the immortal futon pavilion. As fragrant tea was served, a middle-aged man exuding a scholarly aura stepped into the VIP lounge with a beaming smile. His eyes swept over Tan Xiu and Gu Yan, as he immediately smiled and said, "Welcome, fellow immortals. I heard that you have a big deal to make with this humble shop. Ah, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Duantianya, the chief steward of the Celestial Vine Pavilion in the Ravenous Wolf Immortal Domain." Tan Xiu watched the beautiful shop assistant leave and closed the door. He immediately raised his hand and took out a jade bottle from his interspatial ring. Then, he lightly smiled and said, "Mature auric perfusion source. Give me a reasonable price. We'll make the deal if I can accept it. If I can't, I won't bargain with you and will directly leave to sell it to other shops." Auric perfusion source. Duan Tianya stared blankly and then looked surprised. He opened the jade bottle and observed it for a while. Finally, he nodded and said, "It's indeed a mature auric perfusion source. This kind of treasure is very valuable. Once it appears in the market, countless immortals will fight for it. Since fellow immortals said that you won't bargain, then I'll give you a real price. 240,000 immortal crystals. If fellow immortal is willing to sell it, I'll immediately pay you the immortal crystals. But if you don't, you can sell it elsewhere, 240,000 immortal crystals." Tan Xiu could still afford the price, so he nodded and said, "The price is quite reasonable. I can accept it. But I wonder how big the appetite of this Celestial Vine Pavilion branch is. Could it be that fellow immortal has more auric perfusion source?" Duan Tianya was surprised. "That's right," answered Tan Xiu. Duan Tianya carefully observed Tan Xiu and Gu Yan again and seriously said, "If fellow immortal has no more than 10 auric perfusion source, then this branch can carry out the transaction now. If it exceeds 10, you'll need to give me 10 days. We'll buy as many auric perfusion source as you have after 10 days. A glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes and he said in a deep voice, "We've spent a lot of effort to get 4 of them. However, we'll increase the price a bit. The total price of 4 auric perfusion source is 1 million immortal crystals. We can carry out the transaction now if you can accept it. Duan Tianya pondered for a while and then nodded. Deal. After Tan Xiu gave the remaining 3 auric perfusion source to Duan Tianya, he quietly waited for half an hour. Then, Duan Tianya handed an interspatial ring to Tan Xiu and said, "There are 1 million immortal crystals inside. If fellow immortal has more auric perfusion source or other good things in the future, you can also trade them with us. Our celestial vine pavilion is absolutely fair in doing business." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and nodded. "Rest assured. I've had countless transactions with your celestial vine pavilion, so I naturally have confidence in you. Since this transaction is over, then let's part ways here. I'll naturally come to you if there's anything else in the future." "Alright, I'll see you off." Duan Tianya sent Tan Xiu and Gu Yan out of the store. As he watched them disappear into the crowd in the distance, a glint flashed in his eyes. At this moment, a middle-aged woman silently appeared beside him. "Have you seen their strength?" asked Duan Tianya. "That young man has the aura of a tribulation, so he should have just ascended to immortality not long ago," said the middle-aged woman. "I really can't see through the woman beside him, but I think her cultivation should be much higher than mine. I'm afraid those who can sell 4 auric perfusion source at once are not simple." Duan Tianya nodded. "We can earn hundreds of thousands of immortal crystals from buying 4 auric perfusion source, which is already very good." "Aren't you going to send someone to investigate their identity?" asked the middle-aged woman. "Forget it." Duan Tianya shook his head. "It's better not to investigate such a big customer, lest they misunderstand our celestial vine pavilion." "That's right, you can buy one of the auric perfusion source for 250,000 immortal crystals. I'm afraid your daughter is in need of this auric perfusion source now." A hint of gratitude appeared on the middle-aged woman's face. She gently nodded and said, "I'll put the immortal crystals in the storeroom later." Inside the city, Tan Xiu and Gu Yan strolled around and bought a lot of cultivation resources. After all, they were now rich people. 1 million immortal crystals was equivalent to hundreds of millions of immortal stones. It was likely that many ordinary immortals wouldn't be able to earn so many immortal crystals even after cultivating for thousands of years. After a round of shopping, the two of them spent a total of 200,000 immortal crystals before they left in satisfaction. However, because of their extravagant purchases, they also attracted the attention of some people. When they left the city, they discovered that there were dozens of sneaky figures following them. "What should we do, master?" With a smile on her face, Gu Yan held Tan Xiu's arm and asked in a low voice. "Just shake them off," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "It's too easy to see such thieves and rascals. Besides, such people are generally very poor, so there's no need to waste our energy." Gu Yan let out a faint smile and soared into the sky with Tan Xiu. In just a dozen breaths, they left behind dozens of sneaky figures and disappeared from their sight. This immortal domain was very big, and this land was even more vast. Following the coordinates of the Aurelian Artificer sect given to him by Dark North Immortal, Tan Xiu easily found the sect's location in the depths of the millions of miles mountain range. Above the clouds. Looking down at the mountain below, Tan Xiu and Gu Yan nodded and said, "I've been here before, but it's been a long time and my memory is a bit fuzzy. However, I still remember one thing. Back then, there were only mountains around the Aurelian Artificer sect, and there was no lingering spirit fog. It seems that as the Aurelian Artificer sect developed, they paid a huge price to hire a powerful array master to set up a spirit gathering array for their sect." "Someone found us, master," said Gu Yan, with a smile. Tan Xiu looked at the dozens of burly figures soaring into the sky and laughed aloud. "I'm Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, and I've come to keep the appointment. Please lead the way to see your sect master, Dark North Immortal." The leader was a burly man with red hair. He observed Tan Xiu and Gu Yan a few times and immediately showed respect. He cupped his fists and said, "We were ordered to wait for Great Tang fellow immortal outside the sect." Please follow me since fellow immortal has arrived. Understood. After a while, the red-haired man led Tan Xiao and Gu Yan, into the Aurelian artificer sect's interior. Crafting cauldrons could be seen everywhere inside the Aurelian artificer sect. In almost every corner, disciples of the Aurelian artificer sect could be seen busily working near the cauldrons. Ha ha ha! A loud laughter came from a distance as Dark North Immortal quickly came to Tan Xiao and Gu Yan, with two high-level members of the Aurelian artificer sect. Great Tang, fellow immortal, is really punctual. It's not even half a year yet you're already here. Tan Xiao smiled and said, we naturally won't waste any more time since we've already gotten enough immortal crystals. Anyways, how's the matter I entrusted you with, Dark North Immortal? Don't worry. Dark North Immortal smiled. My sect has invited all the artificers within tens of millions of kilometers. Hundreds of thousands of people have been refining them day and night. It'll take us 10 months at most to complete your order. However, we've invited too many artificers, and our consumption is also very fast. I wonder if... Tan Xiao flipped his hand and took out an interspatial ring with 200,000 immortal crystals he had prepared in advance. He handed it over to Dark North Immortal and said, count it. If the number is correct, we'll need to go somewhere else. Chapter 1266. Dark North Immortal didn't fully trust Tan Xiao, but he didn't check it at all and directly put away the interspatial ring. He believed that Tan Xiao wouldn't deceive him about this matter because the immortal sword, combat robe, and other weapons Tan Xiao ordered were still in the hands of his Aurelian artificer sect. Where are you going, Great Tang immortal friend? Do you want me to send someone to accompany you? Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, no need to trouble yourself. I paid 200,000 immortal crystals to your sect, so I'm now poor. So, the Clearwater clan should be nearby, right? Let's go there and have a look. I hope the Clearwater clan isn't as poor as us. A glint flashed in Dark North Immortal's eyes and he said in a deep voice, Great Tang immortal friend, my Aurelian artificer sect won't intervene too much if you want to go somewhere else. But I hope you can give my sect a chance to take revenge by going to the Clearwater clan. You can rest assured that all the wealth we get from the Clearwater clan will be yours. Tan Xiao frowned and said, your Aurelian artificer sect needs to go all out in refining artifacts. If, my sect has a total of 4 golden immortal ancestors, said Dark North Immortal. It won't take too much time for them to go with you. Half a month's time is enough. Tan Xiao thought for a while and nodded. We won't stop you since you want to take revenge. Let's go together. All the wealth we get from the Clearwater clan will be handed over to your sect. You only need to give us weapons of the same value. Good. Dark North Immortal smiled with satisfaction. He hated the Clearwater clan. After all, he almost died in their hands. Even if he couldn't kill the Clearwater clan's clansmen this time, it would be the same to send several sword immortal ancestors. Suddenly, Tan Xiao's expression shifted and he looked at Gu Yan, and said, Yan, why don't you go with the Aurelian artificer sect's ancestors? I'll stay here and refine some things. Gu Yan would never refute Tan Xiao's decision. She nodded with a smile and said, then wait for my good news here, master. In the end, Gu Yan, and the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian artificer sect left together, while Tan Xiao stayed in the Aurelian artificer sect under the warm hospitality of Dark North Immortal. Crimson Cliff Cave. This was the residence of the Aurelian artificer sect master for a long time, and it was also the best place to forge artifacts. This cave had earth vein magma, and there was even a small amount of 9 yang purple flame born from the earth vein magma. Thus, it was the best place to forge artifacts. With the same materials and the same artifact refiner in the Scarlet Cliff Cave, the quality of the immortal artifact refined using the 9 yang purple flame would be at least a level higher. By right, the ironclad rule of the Aurelian artificer sect was that the Red Cliff Cave would never be open to outsiders. But after discussions between Dark North Immortal and the 4 ancestors, they finally decided to provide it to Tan Xiao for refining. There were 3 reasons for this. The first was that the Aurelian Artificer sect's best artifact refinement manual was given to them by the ancestors, fabricated by Tan Xiu. The second reason was that Tan Xiu had saved Dark North Immortal and Dark North Everblithe's lives. The third reason was that they wanted to see Tan Xiu's artifact refinement level. Inside the blazing Scarlet Cliff Cave, Tan Xiu was guided by Dark North Immortal to tour the place and then got a list of refining materials. When Dark North Immortal received the list of materials for crafting tools, there was only a wry smile on his face. No other expression could replace it. Lucid Sky Sand, Pure Gold Sand, and Azure Peng Tendon. These three refining materials are all extremely precious and rare treasures. Let alone my Aurelian Artificer sect, I'm afraid that even the entire extraterrestrial Milky Way doesn't have these three materials. Great Tang Immortal Friend, I wonder if it's possible to replace them with other materials. Dark North Immortal felt his face burning and asked with a wry smile. He suddenly recalled the records of the sect's history. In the past, the mysterious powerhouse, who was also the ancestor of this great Tang Heavenly Emperor, also needed some refining materials. But the elders of his Aurelian Artificer sect didn't give them to him at all. Some of these materials were even unheard of. A disappointed look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he said, "Take me to see what materials your Aurelian Artificer sect has. Don't let me see the ordinary trash." Dark North Immortal hesitated for a moment, but he finally nodded. Although his Aurelian Artificer sect did have several extremely precious refining materials, the value of those materials was also so high that it made one's heart tremble. He felt that Tan Xiu wouldn't seize the precious materials of his Aurelian Artificer sect for no reason. It was a kind of trust and self-confidence. "Come with me." Dark North Immortal took a deep breath. After walking for hundreds of meters, he stopped in front of the wall of the cave. As he cast a spell, the tightly stitched wall soon split open, revealing a corridor leading to the front. The corridor wasn't very spacious, but it was wide enough for two people to walk side by side. Inside, it was a secret chamber. When Tan Xiu appeared at the door of the secret chamber, his eyes swept over the dozen transparent light shields. A surprised look immediately appeared on his handsome face. Eventually, his eyes fell on a football-sized ore in the corner of the room. The ore exuded a yellow radiance and he couldn't move his eyes away anymore. Earth core. Tan Xiu's footsteps involuntarily moved toward it. When he stood in front of the light shield, he murmured. Dark North Immortal looked puzzled. He looked at Tan Xiu and asked, "Do you know what this material is, Great Tang Immortal Friend?" Tan Xiu turned his head with difficulty and looked at the confused Dark North Immortal. Then, he asked incredulously, "You don't know what this material is?" "No, I don't." Dark North Immortal shook his head and forced a smile. "Not only me, but the four ancestors of my sect also don't know about it. To be honest, this thing has a very strong compatibility. Even if two materials of the cold attribute and the yang attribute are put together to refine artifacts, it will still have excellent compatibility and harmonization. Therefore, we concluded that this is a very precious ore, so we put it here as a treasure." Tan Xiu felt helpless inwardly. In the eyes of the Aurelian Artificer sect, this kind of supreme treasure could only play a role of compatibility and harmonization. It was simply a reckless waste of God's gift. It was the Earth core. Only a planet with an abnormally rich Earth attribute would undergo the baptism of hundreds of millions of years and eventually form its origin essence. Once the Earth core was formed, there would definitely be immortals on that planet who would break through and become gods. In other words, it was the companion of gods. This thing, once it appeared in the eyes of the immortals who knew about it, it was bound to set off a bloody storm in the immortal world. Even terrifying supremes would participate in the crazy scramble for it. If Tan Xiu had such a big piece of the Earth core in the past, he wouldn't have fallen even if he was ambushed by those supremes. Perhaps, he could even get a chance to turn the situation around. "Great Tang Immortal Friend, you haven't told me yet. What exactly is this thing?" asked Dark North Immortal curiously. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and solemnly said, "This thing is an excellent treasure. Even some terrifying bigwigs want to have it. Dark North Immortal, I hope you can sell it to me if possible. Dark North Immortal looked embarrassed and forced a smile. Great Tang Immortal friend, our sect doesn't have many precious materials. Besides, we also need this thing to refine some immortal artifacts, else we won't be able to refine them. You're making things difficult for me. Tan Xiao gave it a thought and said, everything has a price. It's just a matter of how much it's worth. I don't want to hide it from you. This thing is very precious, but it's a complete waste in your hands. So, you might as well sell it to me. I'm willing to pay a high price for it. A high price? Dark North Immortal forced a smile. You don't seem to have any immortal stones or crystals, do you? Do you want to barter it with something else? Tan Xiao was silent for a moment. Then, he quickly took out an interspatial ring and said, there are 500,000 immortal crystals in this ring. It's the most wealth I can take out now. If you think it's not enough, I still have 20 million immortal stones, which should be worth 200,000 immortal crystals. This wealth should be enough to buy it. A shocked look appeared on Dark North Immortal's face. He stared blankly at Tan Xiao and incredulously said, what the hell have you been doing these past few months? How can you take out so many immortal stones and crystals? Don't tell me, you looted the treasure vault of a super sect? We got some auric perfusion sources and sold them to the Celestial Vine Pavilion, said Tan Xiao. You should know the price of the auric perfusion sources. Dark North Immortal's expression changed and he hurriedly asked, the auric perfusion sources? You actually obtained the auric perfusion source. And you even got several of them? Heavens! This is the most precious treasure that all immortals yearn for. Even in our immortal domain, you can't buy it even if you have the money. A strange light flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes and he asked, do you need the auric perfusion sources? I do. Of course I do, Dark North Immortal said aloud. If I can get this auric perfusion sources, I'm sure I can break through to the late-stage golden immortal stage within the next 1,000 years. I even have a glimmer of hope to break through to the perfected golden immortal stage. Great Tang Immortal friend. You. How could you sell such a precious treasure? If you can give me one auric perfusion sources, I'm willing to buy it even if I have to spend all my money. Tan Xiao asked with a strange expression, do you think the auric perfusion sources are more important? Or 700,000 immortal crystals? Of course it's the auric perfusion sources, answered Dark North Immortal without hesitation. We can always find ways to earn more immortal crystals, but it's very difficult to buy more auric perfusion sources if we lose them. Tan Xiao knew that the auric perfusion sources were a huge temptation to weaker immortals, but he never thought that the temptation would be so great. Suddenly, he felt that the price he sold it to the Celestial Vine Pavilion seemed to be too low. He shook his head. Tan Xiao threw the thought out of his mind and looked at Dark North Immortal. I won't take advantage of you. I'll give you 2 auric perfusion sources in exchange for this thing. How about it? What? Dark North Immortal was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that Tan Xiao still had the auric perfusion sources. The most important thing was that he had already said that the auric perfusion sources were more important than 700,000 immortal crystals in his eyes, yet this guy was willing to trade 2 of them with him. The immortal world was originally going to end at the end of this month, but my brothers and sisters strongly urged me to write more stories about the immortal world. After thinking about it again and again, I decided to write another 300,000 words and finish it next month. I'll ask my brothers and sisters to support me with your monthly votes. I'll be eternally grateful. _. Chapter 1267. Dark North Immortal was a bit moved all of a sudden. He shot a deep look at Tan Xiao and didn't want to hypocritically decline, so he solemnly said, Dark North Immortal, will always keep your friendship and righteousness in mind. If you need anything in the future, you only need to tell me. This Dark North Immortal will go through fire and water for you even if I have to risk my life. After saying that, he took out a token from his interspatial ring and handed it to Tan Xiao, saying again, this is my Aurelian Artificer Sex Heart Inquisition token. Whether it's you or your relatives or friends, as long as you bring this token to my sect in the future, you can ask all the disciples of my sect to help you with one thing. Even if it's dangerous and we have to pay a heavy price, my sect's disciples will never refuse it. Tan Xiu took the Heart Inquisition token and quietly observed it for a while before solemnly putting it into his interspatial ring. Although he knew very well that he wouldn't be able to ask for help from the Aurelian Artificer sect in the future, he didn't want to refuse Dark North Immortal's kind intention. Shortly after, Tan Xiu put away the Earth Heart and then gave the 2 auric perfusion source to Dark North Immortal. Dark North Immortal's heart was stirred up and he said, "Great Tang Immortal friend, this secret chamber contains all the precious refining materials of my sect. You can choose any 3 of them. Consider it as a gift from us. As the saying goes, the hand that gives roses has a lingering fragrance." Tan Xiu knew that Dark North Immortal wanted to thank him, but he was a bit embarrassed inside because the value of the Earth Heart was far from what the 2 auric perfusion source could compare to. "Forget it. I owe the Aurelian Artificer sect a favor. If the sect needs anything in the future, I'll fulfill their wish." Tan Xiu took a deep breath and observed the dozens of materials again. Finally, he chose 3 of them and then left the secret chamber with Dark North Immortal and went to the Scarlet Cliff cave outside. "Great Tang Immortal friend, do you want to use my usual refining furnace?" asked Dark North Immortal. "Or your own crafting furnace?" asked Dark North Immortal. Tan Xiu said, "I'll use my own." Dark North Immortal nodded in response and cast a few immortal seals to store the crafting furnace inside the Scarlet Cliff cavern into his interspatial ring. Then, he said, "Great Tang Immortal friend, if my Aurelian Artificer's sect has the materials you want to refine, feel free to send someone to get them for you. I need to go into seclusion. When the Celestial Sword, Battle Robe, and the other weapons are finished, I will come out of seclusion to meet you." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. He wanted to forge the Rainbow Cloud Robe. Even though the crafting school didn't have enough precious materials, he decided to go to the nearest city to buy them. He was confident that he could refine 20 Rainbow Cloud's robes during his time in the Aurelian Artificer sect. After a while, Tan Xiu listed out the supplementary materials he needed to refine the Rainbow Cloud clothes, and then he left the Crimson Cliff cave. He'd just arrived outside the cave when he saw a tall and sturdy female warrior looking down at him with a bashful smile. "These are the materials I need. I have both types and quantities. It's best to prepare them for me within 3 days. Your sect leader is already in seclusion, and shouldn't be coming out anytime soon. If your Aurelian Artificer's sect has anything to do, wait for your 4 clan elders to come back and let them take charge." Tan Xiu passed the list to the other party and left without looking back. Being looked down upon by a female giant, he didn't feel good. But his height was a problem. Unless he used his celestial power to change his bones and increase his height, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to compete with this female giant who was at least 2.5 meters tall. Immortal Seeking City. After Tan Xiu arrived here alone, he blended into the crowd on the wide street. With his experience, it was a piece of cake for him to mingle around in this kind of cultivation city. However, he was here to buy materials and didn't want to cause trouble. So, he quickly found a young man with a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks at the entrance of an alley, but his eyes were lively and he looked very shrewd. "Master, what can I do for you?" The young man looked at Tan Xiu a few times and concluded that the young man in front of him was definitely a big fat sheep. Therefore, he approached him and asked with a smile. "Are you very familiar with Immortal Seeking City?" asked Tan Xiu indifferently. The young man puffed out his chest and patted his hands as he confidently said, "There's no place in the entire Immortal Seeking City that I, Dragon Broker, am not familiar with. As long as you tell me your needs, Master, I guarantee that I can be a perfect guide. I need to buy some materials for refining. Take me there." Tan Xiu said lightly. "Remember, I won't mistreat you if your service can satisfy me." Dragon Broker blinked and immediately said with a smile, "Master, you can go to the Seacom Street Materials store if you want to buy ordinary refining materials. There are 108 material stores there with all kinds of refining materials. Of course, if your luck is heaven-defying, you can still find treasures in those low-grade goods. If you want to buy precious materials, you need to go to Fragrant River Road. There are 360 material stores there, and all of them are fine products. You can buy the refining materials you need as long as you have the money. Go to Fragrant River Road, said Tan Xiu. Dragon Broker squinted his eyes and his smile was wider than before. He nodded and bowed and said, Master, I can tell that you're not an ordinary person at first glance. Even an immortal can't compare with you. Let's go. Among the 360 material stores, the top ones are Golden Hall and Immortal Material Store. However, Golden Hall does business with immortals. Even if ordinary people enter, they can only look at it. As for the Immortal Material Store, although its name is awesome, there's no limit to the number of customers. Let's go to Golden Hall, said Tan Xiu. Dragon Broker's skinny body suddenly trembled. He looked at Tan Xiu in amazement and hurriedly said respectfully, Yes, yes, yes. I'll take you to Golden Hall right away. Master, since you're a high and mighty immortal, you must remember one thing. There's no bargaining in Golden Hall. All the refining materials are priced at the same price. Once you open your mouth to negotiate the price, you'll be left out in the cold. Tan Xiu nodded slightly. Under the guidance of Dragon Broker, it took them half a day to arrive at Golden Hall. It was a large classical pavilion with a height of 100 meters and an area of several kilometers. It was richly ornamented and magnificent. Just by standing outside, it was not difficult to see that this material store was of a high grade. Welcome, honorable guest. A young man dressed like a manservant in a black battle robe greeted him with a smile. His sharp eyes merely swept over Dragon Broker and didn't look at him again. I need to buy several refining materials. This is the name and quantity of the materials I need, said Tan Xiu indifferently. If you have them, we can trade immediately. The manservant took the list and glanced at it a few times. He suddenly looked surprised and said, We do have sky net sand and pure gold tendon, but the price is very expensive. As for the dark rock tendon, we don't have it in our store because such a treasure will be crazily snatched once it is placed in the store. Where can I get this material? Asked Tan Xiu with a nod. I don't know the specifics because our Golden Hall has never sold this material. The manservant shook his head. However, there is a material in our store that is similar to the dark rock tendon. It's even a bit better. You see. What kind of material is it? Asked Tan Xiu in surprise. The dragon snake tendon, answered the manservant. Tan Xiu immediately looked satisfied and nodded. The dragon snake tendon is indeed better than the dark rock tendon, and it has the same effect in refining weapons. Then I'll buy it. What's the total value of these materials and quantity I want? Senior, will you pay with immortal stones? Asked the manservant. Or immortal crystals? Give me immortal crystals, answered Tan Xiu. The manservant nodded and quickly cast a spell to pass the message. A few minutes later, 3 ordinary immortals arrived with 3 kinds of materials. These 3 materials are all top grade, with a total value of 560,000 immortal crystals, said the burly man in the lead. Tan Xiu checked the 3 materials. After confirming that there were no errors, he took the immortal crystals from his interspatial ring and put them into another empty interspatial ring. Then, he handed them to the man and said, 560,000 immortal crystals. The burly man smiled after checking them and said, Welcome back, honored guest. Tan Xiu put away the 3 materials and didn't stay here for a long time. Although he still wanted to buy a lot of refining materials, he still had 240,000 immortal crystals left. He needed to pay for the teleportation array and leave some for the soldiers of the Great Tang Empire. He went out of the door. Tan Xiu took out an immortal crystal and threw it to Dragon Broker. Is there any other interesting place in Immortal Seek City? Dragon Broker looked excited. He was just a nobody who hadn't even reached the nascent soul stage. Usually, he could only get a few immortal stones even if he was a guide. This was the first time he got an immortal crystal as a reward. One must know that an immortal crystal was equivalent to 100 immortal stones, yet Tan Xiu gave him 200 immortal stones in one go. How rich and overbearing. After Dragon Broker labeled Tan Xiu, a smile bloomed on his monkey-like face and he said flatteringly, "Yes, yes, yes. There are too many interesting places in Immortal Seek City. But what kind of interesting place do you want to go, sir?" Tan Xiu thought for a while and asked, "Is there any convict arena in this Immortal Seek City?" The convict arena? Dragon Broker couldn't help but shudder. He hesitated for a while and then said with a wry smile, "Yes, but that place is too bloody." "What kind of place do you want to go, sir?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, "That's right. I'm lacking some attendance recently, so I'm going to buy some. Let's go. You'll get more benefits later as long as the place you take me to satisfies me." Upon hearing this, Dragon Broker's spirit was shaken and he hurriedly said, "Please come with me, sir. I know the most terrifying place in Immortal Seek City, the convict arena. There are countless ferocious people there. I'm sure you'll be satisfied." "Are there immortals there?" asked Tan Xiu. "Yes. You can even have golden immortal gladiators there as long as you have the money," answered Dragon Broker. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and he immediately said with satisfaction, "Let's go. I have other things to do later, so I don't have much time." Chapter 1268. Generally, every large city in the immortal world had a convict arena. It was similar to the gladiator arenas on Earth, full of cruelty and blood. Every deathmatch gladiator was a slave whose fate was in the hands of others. They only had two ways to survive. The first was to kill their opponents in the convict arena, and the second was to be fancied by a rich man and be bought. Immortal Seek City. This city could only be regarded as a medium-sized city in the immortal world, but it had a convict arena due to its geographical location. After all, this immortal domain was much more barren than the other prosperous immortal domains, hence the number of desperados here. "Master, it's just ahead." Dragon Broker nodded and bowed as he followed Tan Xiu. After half a day's journey, they arrived outside a pitch-black, 1,000-meter-high black castle. Even with Tan Xiu's terrifying eyesight, he found that he couldn't see the end of this castle. "The scale of this place doesn't seem small, no?" asked Tan Xiu. "You're right." Dragon Broker said, "This lowly one may not have been to other cities, but I've heard a lot about it. Rumor has it that the scale of the convict arena in those large cities is not as big as the Immortal Seek City. Hence, many gamblers from other immortal domains come here to gamble. You seem to know the convict arena very well. Do you often go there to play?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "This lowly one is poor and destitute. It's not easy for me to barely make a living, so where would I find the spare money to play? It's just that, a lot of outsiders come here to gamble and still need us as guides. I've accompanied a lot of gamblers to this place and I've seen some people suddenly become rich, but I've also seen more people lose money and become penniless." So what?" asked Tan Xiu with a playful smile. "So I don't dare to go there," said Dragon Broker bitterly. "Every investor that comes to me, I've always cautiously advised them not to gamble there." Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and gave him a pill. Then, he lightly smiled and said, "You're not bad. At least you don't have a bad heart. Let's go. It's been a long time since I went to the convict arena to play. Let's go gamble a few rounds today and try to win the money to buy the death match." Dragon Broker stared blankly at the pill in his hand, a warm feeling surging in his heart. His expression was very complicated because he had served tens of thousands of potential customers, but he had never met such a generous customer. "Sir, how should I address you?" "You can call me Lord Great Tang," said Tan Xiu calmly. "I'm not qualified to advise you, Sir Great Tang." Dragon Broker heavily nodded and said, "But for the sake of this pill, I hope you won't play too big. There are countless immortals who have lost miserably in the convict arena." "I understand. A little gambling is fun." Tan Xiu nodded calmly. His eyes swept across the dozens of burly men guarding outside the 100-meter-high gate. To his surprise, the leader of these men was a golden immortal expert. "Welcome. Would you like to rent a chariot?" A dragon lady with a horn on her head asked with a smile as she swayed her slender waist. "How much does it cost?" asked Tan Xiu. "An ordinary chariot costs 10 immortal stones, while a high-end chariot costs 100 immortal stones," said the dragon lady. "Each chariot can be used indefinitely, so it won't be a problem even if the two of you want to stay inside for thousands of years." Tan Xiu took out 100 immortal stones and handed them to her, saying, "How about a high-end chariot?" Having said that, he then turned to look at Dragon Broker and asked, "You control it?" "Understood." Dragon Broker looked a bit surprised. He liked to control chariots very much and had done it countless times in the past. He felt that it was much more enjoyable than riding a flying sword. As the two of them picked a boat-shaped chariot, Tan Xiu boarded it and saw Dragon Broker skillfully controlling it as they flew inside. The inside space was filled with open stalls on both sides of the straight road. Each of the stalls sold weapons, pills, talismans, and so on. As long as it was a common item in the immortal world, everything was available. Tan Xiu had been to this kind of place countless times, so he naturally knew that the items sold in these stalls were almost all aimed at cultivators. Generally speaking, powerhouses who had broken through to the immortal stage would never buy things from such low-grade stalls. However, immortals were too lazy to look at things, yet he was in great need of them. After all, almost none of the people in the Great Tang Empire had broken through to the immortal stage, and the items sold here were very useful to them. "Dragon Broker, introduce me to a stall. The price must be fair and the items must be complete," said Tan Xiu calmly. "What do you need to buy, Sir Great Tang?" asked Dragon Broker hesitantly. "Do you have a specific number?" "I need pills, talismans, weapons, refining materials, and medicinal herbs suitable for nascent soul stage cultivators," said Tan Xiu. "The quantity should be enough for hundreds of thousands of cultivators to use for 100 years. Gasp! Dragon Broker's eyes turned as big as a bell and he exclaimed in horror, "So much?" Tan Xiu slightly smiled and said, "If you help me with this, I'll give you 10 immortal crystals as a reward when we leave this place." 10 immortal crystals? Dragon Broker's body trembled and he immediately looked pleasantly surprised. It must be noted that 10 immortal crystals were equivalent to 1,000 immortal stones, which was enough for him to use for several years. "You can rest assured, Sir Great Tang. I promise to do it well for you and buy the most resources with the least amount of immortal stones." Dragon Broker patted his chest and guaranteed. Shortly after, the duo didn't rush to the convict prison but spent 4 days shopping. When Tan Xiu had spent 20 million immortal stones, the cultivation resources that were enough for more than 200,000 people in the Great Tang Empire to use for 100 years had all been prepared. Dragon Broker had never been as excited as he was in the past 4 days. The feeling of spending money like flowing water made his blood boil all the time. He looked at Tan Xiu as though he was a god. Huff! When the duo came out of a stall, Dragon Broker heaved a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat on his forehead. Then, he respectfully said, "Sir Great Tang, are we going to the convict prison next?" "Take me to the highest level convict prison," said Tan Xiu. "If you want to enter the highest level convict prison, you need to prove the wealth of the gamblers," said Dragon Broker. "The minimum guarantee is 10,000 immortal crystals." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "There's no limit to this threshold for us. Let's go." Understood. Dragon Broker had seen Tan Xiu's spending in the past few days and naturally knew that Tan Xiu had a lot of immortal stones and crystals. Therefore, after taking them to the deepest part of the convict prison, he said to the guard outside, "You two, we know the rules." Tan Xiu handed over an interspatial ring. After the guard verified it, he respectfully invited the duo inside. The convict prison. It was an independent space that covered an area of hundreds of kilometers and had a height of nearly 1,000 meters. It was like the arena on Earth, surrounded by spectator seats that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. The center of the space was a 200-kilometer range where the deathmatch gladiators participated in the fight. At this moment, there were already thousands of gamblers in the spectator seats. All of them had ferocious expressions as they stared at the two people fighting in the ring. They were not pure humans, nor were they pure immortals. One of them was a leopard-headed expert with an earth immortal stage cultivation. His naked upper body was wrapped with fine iron chains and he wielded an immortal long saber that transformed into layers of saber shadows. The other one was a winged man with a human appearance but 2 pairs of wings. His wings flapped and a flaming saber shadow suddenly bombarded each other. Tan Xiu casually found a place to sit down and calmly watched the fight between the 2 earth immortals. With his vision, he could easily tell that the leopard-headed earth immortal with fine iron chains had fallen into a disadvantageous position. It wouldn't take long for him to be killed by his opponent. Dragon Broker didn't accompany Tan Xiu to sit down and instead slipped away to the nearby area. There was a row of iron cages on the north side, each with an immortal stage powerhouse inside. Outside the iron cages were clearly marked prices, along with the cultivation information of these deathmatch gladiators, as well as the introduction of their fighting records. Shortly after, as the leopard-headed earth immortal was killed, Dragon Broker slipped back from the distance and stopped next to Tan Xiu. Then, he whispered, "Sir Great Tang, I just heard that there will be 4 high-level fights 3 days later. There will be a total of 8 golden immortal deathmatch gladiators. Only 4 of them will win and the other 4 will be killed in the convict prison's cage. At that time, more than a dozen immortal domains will come to participate in the big gamble." A glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he nodded and said, "If so, then let's play here for 2 days and then use the money we win to buy some cultivation resources from those high-end shops." "Sir Great Tang, can you guarantee that you'll win?" asked Dragon Broker hurriedly. "There's a local saying that goes, don't take up porcelain work if you don't have a diamond or diamond." Tan Xiu nodded. "I wouldn't have come here if I didn't have self-confidence. Of course, you can also think that I'm arrogant. But since I've already made up my mind, let's have some fun." Saying, he handed an interspatial ring to Dragon Broker and lightly said, "There's a total of 100,000 immortal crystals inside. Help me place the bet later. 100,000 immortal crystals." Dragon Broker shivered and said with a bit of fear, "Sir Great Tang, don't you think you're playing too much? There are so many immortal crystals, just in case." "You don't need to question my decision," said Tan Xiu lightly. "You just need to obey me absolutely. If you're not up to the task of accompanying me, I can replace you." Yes. "I'll listen to you." Dragon Broker's expression changed and he immediately realized that he talked too much. After receiving the interspatial ring with 100,000 immortal crystals, he stood beside Tan Xiu and waited for the start of the next duel as well as the start of the big gamble. Chapter 1269. About half an hour later, 2 cool-looking deathmatch gladiators were brought into the convict arena's cage. The white-robed handsome golden immortal powerhouse slightly bowed with a smile and said, "I'm the prison convict, and I'm the 8th match today. A crystal race expert versus a feather race expert. Guests who are participating in this gamble can go and exchange their wagers." Having said that, he didn't stay and quickly left the convict arena's cage. In the auditorium, Dragon Broker bowed and whispered to Tan Xiu, "Sir Great Tang, that crystal expert is just an ordinary immortal, while the feather expert has just entered the earth immortal stage. The fact that the convict arena's people put them in the same group shows that this crystal expert is very powerful and may be comparable to an earth immortal. However, it's also possible that the convict arena's people deliberately used a smokescreen. After all, a gap of a whole realm is not that easy to make up for. You just went around to memorize the information of these deathmatch gladiators, didn't you?" Tan Xiu chuckled. "Well, it's because I need to serve you, so I naturally have to understand the information of these deathmatch gladiators. However, I'll only tell you their information and won't interfere with your judgment and decision." Tan Xiu slowly nodded. Despite his keen eyesight, the crystal expert and the feather expert had yet to fight, so he couldn't judge their strength at the moment. "Tell me about their past records." Dragon Broker told Tan Xiu about the records of the 2 combatants. He had a very good memory, so he could directly recite the records of the two combatants. After reciting it, he said, "Sir Great Tang, I'm afraid you'll need to personally record the information of all the deathmatch gladiators if you want to keep gambling. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until the start of each duel before making a judgment. I'm afraid it won't be very comprehensive if you hastily consider it." Tan Xiu gently nodded and kept recalling the records of the two combatants in his mind. After 10 minutes, he said, "Go exchange the gambling deed and bet all of it on that crystal gladiator, 100,000 immortal crystals." Dragon Broker felt his throat was a bit dry and hesitantly asked. Tan Xiu said, "Yes, 100,000 immortal crystals." Dragon Broker knew that Tan Xiu was rich and overbearing, but he didn't expect Tan Xiu to be so careless. It should be noted that it was definitely not a wise move for him to bet 100,000 immortal crystals on the Crystal Race Deathmatch Gladiator after hearing the results of the two of them. However, he didn't dare to persuade him because his previous persuasion had already caused the other party's dissatisfaction. Helpless, he could only go to the exchange counter and exchange for a bet of 100,000 immortal crystals. The convict arena was actually the banker here. Regardless of whether they won or lost, the convict arena would still be the one paying. However, the loser would lose all the money he had exchanged for the bet, while the winner could double the amount of money he had bet. For example, if Tan Xiu won this gamble, he would be able to win 100,000 immortal crystals. Shortly after, Dragon Broker took the bet representing 100,000 immortal crystals and returned to Tan Xiu. After handing over the bet to Tan Xiu, he respectfully said, "Sir Great Tang, you can go to the exchange counter to exchange for immortal crystals if you win in the end. Also, there's still half an hour before the fight begins. Would you like to check the information of the two deathmatch gladiators?" Tan Xiu thought for a while before getting up and saying, "It's all right to go and have a look. I don't want to waste time here." Having said that, after that, Tan Xiu left the auditorium. However, he didn't directly look at the information of the two deathmatch gladiators, but started from one end and read the cages in order. In just half an hour, he had seen nearly 100 deathmatch gladiators and read all their information. "Sir Great Tang, the deathmatch has begun. Don't we need to go back to the auditorium?" Dragon Broker really couldn't figure out Tan Xiu's thoughts. After hesitating for a while, he lowered his voice and asked, "Let's go to the auditorium and enjoy the fight after reading the information of all the deathmatch gladiators," said Tan Xiu lightly. "You can go back to the auditorium and watch the fight yourself if you feel bored accompanying me." Dragon Broker thought for a while and finally said honestly, "I'd better accompany you, Sir Great Tang. I can also run some errands for you if you encounter a deathmatch gladiator you like and want to buy one." "All right." Tan Xiu replied casually and continued to walk forward. There were more than 200 deathmatch gladiators in this prison cage. When Tan Xiu saw 140 of them, the fight between the Crystal Race and the Feather Race came to an end, and the final winner was the Crystal Race's deathmatch gladiators. He won. Dragon Broker was so excited that his body trembled a bit. Although he wasn't the one who participated in the gamble, Tan Xiu easily won 100,000 immortal crystals, which was an eye-opener for him. Perhaps the more immortal crystals Tan Xiu won, the more rewards he would get in the end. Tan Xiu seemed not to have heard Dragon Broker's words. At this moment, he was standing in front of a huge iron cage, looking at a thin and blood-stained Catwoman inside. Her appearance was very beautiful. Other than a few shallow horizontal lines on her cheeks, she only had a short tail, which had obviously been chopped off by someone. Other than that, there was no difference between her and a human. Whenever Tan Xiu approached the other deathmatch gladiators, they would always see Tan Xiu with a ferocious expression or a malicious look in their eyes. But this Catwoman didn't. Her eyes were full of numbness, without the slightest luster. Her expression was dull, and she was indifferent even though she realized that someone was looking at her outside. Déjà vu? Tan Xiu's brows were deeply furrowed and a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. The first time he saw this Catwoman, he felt that she was familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. But when he searched his memory, he really couldn't remember. "Little kitty," stand up and turn around a few times. Tan Xiu suddenly said. The Catwoman's dull eyes suddenly focused. When she turned her head and saw Tan Xiu, she was slightly startled. Then, she blinked her blue eyes and suddenly sprinted toward Tan Xiu like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't until her hands grabbed the iron cage that she stared at Tan Xiu and sniffed with her nose. Half a quarter of an hour. Her pupils suddenly shrank. The moment she let go of the iron cage, she staggered backward and then slumped to the ground. It must be noted that she was a celestial immortal expert, but because of the shock, she lost control of her mind and sat there paralyzed. Her voice was a bit hoarse, as if her throat had been seriously damaged. But she only uttered a word and swallowed the rest of her words back into her stomach. Crystal clear tears covered her shocked eyes. Under Tan Xiu's gaze, she slowly lay down sideways. As big drops of tears fell, her blood-stained fingers gently curled up and made a scratching gesture. Chinchilla. Tan Xiu's body trembled and disbelief filled his eyes. He stared blankly at the Catwoman who repeatedly made the same gesture, and his heart fiercely twitched a few times. Show me your lower abdomen. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice. The Catwoman slowly crawled up and gently lifted her ragged clothes. When the shocking scar appeared in Tan Xiu's line of sight, he keenly saw a subtle black line on the scarred abdomen of the Catwoman. At this moment, Tan Xiu tightly clenched his fists. His murderous eyes fell on Dragon Broker as he said in a deep voice, I want her. Tell the person in charge of the convict arena that I'll buy her no matter the price. Dragon Broker didn't notice the strange look between Tan Xiu and the Catwoman just now. He was still immersed in the joy of Tan Xiu's winning 100,000 immortal crystals. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, he observed the Catwoman a few times before replying and dashing toward the exchange counter. Half a quarter of an hour. Dragon Broker arrived with an old man with a goatee and a grey Taoist robe. Fellow immortal, are you the one who wants to buy this gladiator? The old man had a benevolent smile on his face. He stroked his goatee as he spoke. Is it the price above? Asked Tan Xiu. That's right. You can buy this gladiator for 420,000 immortal crystals, said the old man with a smile. Tan Xiu handed him the gambling contract and then took out 220,000 immortal crystals from his interspatial ring. He put them in another ring and handed them to the old man, saying, 420,000 immortal crystals. She's mine. The old man let out a faint smile and took out a strange-looking key to unlock the chain on the iron cage. He then handed a jade token to Tan Xiu and said, this is her natal soul essence. Her life is in your hands from now on. Tan Xiu waved his hand and watched the old man leave. Then, a true fire appeared in his palm and the jade token was instantly burned by him. However, he injected a transparent soul essence into the Catwoman's body. Sir Great Tang. Dragon Broker looked horrified as though he had just seen the most incredible thing in the world. It must be noted that every gladiator was a ruthless character. Unless they had the natal soul essence in their hands, it would be terrible if they were to kill their master. Tan Xiu took out 20 immortal crystals and handed them to Dragon Broker, saying, you don't need to stay with me anymore from now on. These immortal crystals are your reward. If I don't take the initiative to find you, you'll disappear from my sight forever. Dragon Broker shuddered inwardly. After hesitating for a while, he took the 20 immortal crystals with a bit of regret and left at an extremely fast speed. Tan Xiu then took out a robe from his interspatial ring and came to the Catwoman. He personally draped it over her and said softly, you've suffered a lot. Big drops of tears flowed out of the Catwoman's eyes. She shook her head desperately and gently hugged Tan Xiu, not letting go for a long time. After a long while, Tan Xiu gently patted her shoulder and then took out a springtime elixir. He stuffed it into her mouth and said, stay with me. I'll take you home after staying here for a few days. Chapter 1270. Catgirl was a chinchilla, but she was not a rat-like creature like those on Earth. Instead, she was a descendant of the Dragon clan and the Cat clan, possessing both the dragon and cat bloodlines. As far as Tan Xiu knew, the number of chinchillas in the entire immortal world was definitely no more than 3 digits. Once upon a time, Tan Xiu once owned a chinchilla, which was an immortal fate and also a favor. Cat Girl gently grabbed Tan Xiu's arm with a pleading look in her eyes and said, "Master, can you buy the furious lion roar? He once saved me and deliberately spared my life in the convict arena's cage. Furious lion roar. Follow me." Tan Xiu nodded. Along the way, Tang Xiu read the information of the remaining nearly 100 deathmatch gladiators and their information. Finally, he stopped in front of a bearded lion man with exuberant golden fur. The lion man didn't threaten Tan Xiu, but smiled when he saw Cat Girl following Tan Xiu. 1.2 million immortal crystals. Profound immortal stage. After reading his score, Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and indifferently said, "Just wait, I'll take you away from here." After saying that, he returned to the auditorium with Cat Girl. As a new round of fighting was about to begin, Tan Xiu took out 100,000 immortal crystals and handed them to Cat Girl, saying, "Bet on Hulk." "All right." Cat Girl left for a while and quickly returned to Tan Xiu's side and handed the gambling deed representing 100,000 immortal crystals to Tan Xiu. "Take it," Tan Xiu calmly said. The battle started quickly and ended quickly, with Hulk finally winning. In the next 2 days, Tan Xiu gambled a total of 6 times, and the 100,000 immortal crystals kept doubling. In the end, the number of immortal crystals he had reached 6.4 million. It's about time. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and returned to the iron cage where the lion man was. After paying the person in charge of the convict arena 1.2 million immortal crystals, he bought the lion man. After the old man left, Tan Xiu looked at the lion man again and seriously said, "I'll give you 2 choices now. First, I'll return your life token to you and you can leave. Second, follow me in the future, but you must clearly explain your past, and I will control your life tablet. There are 2 choices, and I need an answer now." The lion man knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "I would have died here sooner or later if you hadn't saved me. You saved my life. You are my benefactor. But I want to leave. I will repay your kindness 10-fold, 100-fold in the future." Tan Xiu handed him his life token and lightly said, "Everyone has their own aspirations. Since you've chosen to leave, I won't force you to follow me. As for your kindness, I don't need you to repay me." The lion man didn't speak again. After receiving the life token, he bowed to Tan Xiu and then quickly left. He didn't ask why Tan Xiu saved him, since he could faintly guess that it might be a request from the cat girl. In short, he would remember this kindness in his heart, and he would look for his benefactor after he completed a major task. Tan Xiu watched his back disappear into the distance and then turned to look at the cat girl. Due to the unexpected encounter, Tan Xiu decided to leave this place. After all, he had gained quite a lot this time and didn't plan to earn more immortal crystals here. After all, he didn't dare to guarantee that he would win every gamble. It was better to be safe than sorry. If he made a mistake, he would lose all his gains. Quickly, Tan Xiu took the cat girl to the Aurelian Artificer sect. After the two entered the lava cave, Tan Xiu asked, "Cat girl, you haven't transformed yet when I left the immortal world. I know some things about the immortal world later, but not much. Tell me what happened to you." "I heard that you failed to cross your divinity tribulation, Master," said the cat girl. "Then, your 2 friends occupied our place and sent a lot of powerhouses to kill and plunder. I didn't transform at that time, so I escaped the calamity. I wandered around for more than 800 years and was caught by an accident. My natal soul essence was sucked out and sent to a city's convict arena. My dragon bloodline was activated, so I defeated my opponents and survived many times. Later, the immortals of the convict arena saw that I could break through to the demon immortal realm and gave me an immortal pill to break through to become an immortal. Then, I kept fighting with my opponents in the convict arena. I thought I was going to die many times, but I never thought that I would always be lucky enough to survive. Until I met you. A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes and he asked in a deep voice, "Who caught you and sucked out your natal soul essence?" "Tan Lang, a despicable and shameless profound immortal," answered the cat girl. "Where is he now?" asked Tan Xiu. "I don't know." The cat girl shook her head. "I've been in the convict arena for more than 300 years and experienced hundreds of fights. I heard later that he likes to capture some weak people and secretly sell them to the convict arena. It seems that he has a deep relationship with a high-ranking member of the convict arena." "You don't know his origin?" asked Tan Xiu. The cat girl shook her head and suddenly nodded. "He seems to be a disciple of a big sect, but I don't know the name of that sect." Tan Xiu patted her shoulder and lightly said, "If I can recover to my peak in the future, I'll definitely send someone to find him and help you vent your anger." "Thank you, Master." After saying that, the cat girl hugged Tan Xiu and stuck her beautiful face on Tan Xiu's chest. At this moment, she felt that this chest was the warmest and safest place in the entire immortal world. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something and curiously asked, "Where's the mistress, Master?" "I've been inquiring about her many times, but I've never been able to find her." Tan Xiu's face turned cold and he lightly said, "She's no longer your mistress and has nothing to do with me anymore. Remember, if you see her in the future, if she provokes you, you have to kill her directly. You don't need to pay attention to her if she doesn't provoke you." "Why?" asked the cat girl, confused. "No reason. Just remember my words," said Tan Xiu lightly. Shortly after, Tan Xiu didn't want to talk to the cat girl anymore. After taking out the demon god spirit devourer cauldron, he began to refine the artifact with all his might. Because all the materials needed to refine the multicolored cloak had been prepared, Tan Xiu was able to refine 20 pieces of the multicolored cloak in one go. A few months later, when Tan Xiu left the lava cave, he saw Gu Yan, sitting cross-legged outside. After asking, he learned that Gu Yan, and the 4 elders of the Aurelian Artificer sect had completely wiped out the Clearwater clan. Except for an elder of the Aurelian Artificer sect who was slightly injured, everyone else was intact. "I didn't expect the Clearwater clan to have so much wealth, Master. According to the statistics, all their wealth can be exchanged for 230,000 immortal crystals. However, according to your instructions, I've given all the wealth to the Aurelian Artificer sect and asked them to give me weapons of equal value," said Gu Yan, with a smile. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "What our great Tang Empire lacks the most right now is all kinds of resources, especially weapons. We need a lot of resources to back us up if we want to recruit soldiers in the future. When you went to the Clearwater clan, I went to Immortal Quest City and had a good harvest. By the way, did you see the cat girl?" Gu Yan nodded and said, "I saw her when you were in seclusion refining." "But do you really trust her?" "Just like you, she was raised by me." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "But do you really trust her? When she was just born, her parents gave her to me. Even though they knew that they would die, they still did some things for her. It's just that she hadn't transformed yet when I was plotted against." "Do you know her parents?" asked Gu Yan, curiously. "That's right." Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "Her parents once saved my life and are good friends of mine. However, they have their own destiny. Even though I've helped them several times, I still can't change the outcome of their demise." Gu Yan nodded slowly and said, "I know you're a man of ideas, Master, but I hope you won't do something like exposing your identity again. Our enemies are too powerful, so we can only reveal our true identities when we can fight them." "Don't worry." Tan Xiu patted her shoulder and said, "The 1-year deadline is getting closer and closer. I'm afraid that the Aurelian Artificer sect won't be able to complete our order. Let's stay here for 3 months and wait for all the things we need to be prepared before we go back. I need the 4 elders of the Aurelian Artificer sect to help me refine an immortal artifact in the coming days." "What kind of immortal artifact?" asked Gu Yan, curiously. "A heavenly abode immortal artifact," answered Tan Xiu. Gu Yan, was shaken inwardly and said, "A lot of precious materials are needed to refine a heavenly abode immortal artifact, Master. Also, the price will be doubled if the internal space is very large. 5 million immortal crystals should be enough, said Tan Xiu. Gu Yan recalled what Cat Girl told her and immediately nodded with a smile. You won so many immortal crystals in the convict arena, Master. It should be enough to support the refining of a heavenly abode immortal artifact. I'm also proficient in refining artifacts, so I'll help you when the time comes. All right. Tan Xiu smiled and nodded. Time passed by quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had been almost a year and a half since Tan Xiu and Gu Yan left the soldiers of the Great Tang Empire. The Heavenly Abode Immortal Artifact was finally refined by the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian Artificer sect, as well as him and Gu Yan. It was a Heavenly Abode Immortal Artifact that could accommodate millions of people and had the shape of a ship. It was divided into 10 areas inside. Although it couldn't be compared to some Heavenly Abode blessed lands for cultivation, the cultivation speed inside was still not slow if there were a lot of immortal stones and immortal crystals. Let's go. Finally, when the Aurelian Artificer sect had finished refining all the weapons Tan Xiu needed, Tan Xiu bid farewell to Dark North Immortal and the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian Artificer sect. According to the distance between the Aurelian Artificer sect and the Great Tang Empire's forces, it would still take several months